You're listening to Arsenal Pass, a flesh and blood podcast for players by players. And all about strategy, leveling up, and the latest news in the world of Wraith. Welcome to Arsenal Pass.
Hello everyone, welcome back to episode 197 of Arsenal Pass. This is the Hunted Limited set review. We're back at it after missing Rosetta season, and of course, Hayden down here with Pankaj Bhojwani, coming all the way to us from where, Pankaj?
I am in India right now, hence why there's no video on my side. I haven't been able to find amazing internet over here, so we're just going to try and, take it a little easier and just record my voice for this one. But yeah, Hayden, I'm in India for my cousin's wedding, which is happening this weekend. I'm really looking forward to that one. But managed to still take out some time to do the limited set review, because this is looking up to be like a really, really cool limited set, Hayden.
Yeah, I checked out a lot of the world premiere. Obviously, gutted couldn't be there, couldn't make it a couple in a row. But this set, just the flavor, the way that all these little interactions. This set is so much deeper than I think it looks on the surface. I think it already looked a bit deeper than we thought, but actually there's just so many cool interactions. Draft has a lot of different archetypes that we're already seeing, so yeah, super pumped for the set.
I'm still catching up on the world premiere calling. I'm somewhere in the middle of day 2 right now, but all the games so far have looked incredible and really, really fun, and the drafting process also looked really, really cool. Yeah, I'm big up on it. So if this is your first Arsenal Pass limited set review that you're joining us for, we'll explain a little bit about how it works, but effectively this is a bigger pod, and this is the whole pod is us going through all the commons and rares in the set, talking a bit about their impact they have on limited cards, to really focus in on the archetype impacts they have, the way they work, and the things to look out for. So that's effectively what we go through, and yeah, we do it in mostly set order, but we'll talk through that as we get into it. Before we get into that, there is some housekeeping when it comes to the set and how we do the set review. But I guess, Pankaj, anything you want to add before we start to get into the minutiae of how this set review works? No, nothing from my end. It's just let's get into a rating scale. I do have something I want to talk about when it comes to a rating scale, though, so I will bring that up.
All right. Well, I will go. I guess we're going to kick off with the rating scale. Do you want me to kick into it, and then you've got something to add after I talk through the Arsenal Pass limited rating scale? Yes, that's right. All right. I'll get into it. So this is the rating scale that we use here on the limited set review. It's fairly similar to what you'd expect to see. We use an A, B, C, D plus a couple of side grades when it comes to rating cards. A, of course, being the best, down to D, the worst. A's, these are the best of our best cards. These are the things that are going to be the focal point of your deck, the win conditions, the bombs, as some people might refer to them, the cards that you are going to want to either take highly or find yourself picking up late because you've found such a good spot in the draft that you have opened up a lane unto yourself. Thinking about some of these cards, these are high value cards that are going to have either they're going to return you a lot of value, or they're just going to have a big impact in the game. So some of the classic big impact on the game cards from this standpoint of things like Via the Vanguard from Monarch, and then you have some of these more just, value-based cards. Things like Cadaverous Tilling, for instance, from Rosetta, which is just a real powerhouse. Lithic Incantation Red, Pulsing Aether Life. Some of these cards that just have a lot of impact when it comes to what they do on the game and the value you're going to get out of them. Our Bs, these are our above average role players. These are what you would love the majority of your deck to make, or to be made up of, if you can find yourself in the right seat and get access to these cards. These are your things that are going to return you still good solid value and generally just contribute to an overall game plan. If we think about Rosetta, these would be things like Trailblazing Aether, for instance, if you're playing a wizard deck. Lightning Form Red, for instance. Venomous Bite, going back to Part the Misfile. Waxing Spectre Red, for instance. Cards that are just good rate or above and do the thing you need them to do. And then C's, these are your true role players. Traditionally, this is probably what your deck's going to be made up a lot of, especially in draft. These are nothing wrong with these cards. They're solid. They're the deck. They're sort of the cornerstone, the foundation of a lot of limited decks. As I say, role players. These are things like where are we looking at? I'm going to go to Fry Yellow, for instance. Arcanic Spike Red. Water the Seeds Red from previous sets. Agile Engagement, just cards that are going to do a job you need them to do, nothing special, but you need these in your deck to make it operate. And then you've got our Ds, which honestly, your filler, your trash, the cards you want less and less of. You want to ideally be playing none of these, but maybe a couple in your deck. We do find now with Flesh and Blood, I think we see less of these as the sets go on, because there's more impact from our yellows. Particularly with this set, we have a lot more reds than you might expect, and cards printed at only one color. But traditionally, these might be cards like Brush Off Yellow, Blue Electrostatic Discharge, Blue Gravekeeping, things like these that you don't particularly want a lot of. Then we've got two side grades, which is our setup grade and our sideboard grade. Sideboard grade kind of is, as it says, it might not be the card that you play into every matchup, but in the matchups that it's going to be good for particular reasons, which there's a couple in the set. But if we think about some of the cards from previous sets, Save the Thought, I think was a good example in draft for Rosetta, when you went up against some of these life gain decks, for instance. Blessing of Key, red and yellow, if you're playing some of the mirrors in Zen, for instance, in the previous set before. And then we have the setup grade, which effectively is, these cards are good, but they need the right support to be good. Otherwise, if you don't have the right cards around them, they're probably not going to do a whole lot of anything. Some of these cards from previous sets would be things like Fertile Ground. If you can't turn them on, they're going to do not much except for gain 1 or 2 life in your deck. Overload Script, I think, was a good example from Bright Lights as well. Bonds of Ancestry, going back a little bit earlier before that. So those are the grades that we're working with there, Pankaj, but you've got something to add.
Yeah, well, thanks so much for going through that entire laundry list of the grades that we have. I just want to point out that sometimes some cards don't fully fall under one of the grades, so we do have a bit of a plus or minus here and there as well. I don't know about you, Hayden, but I have quite a fair bit of C pluses or C minuses littered around this entire set review. Other than that, want to point out particularly about the A's. Not too many A's, and I think in recent sets people might consider A's to be the bombs of the bombs, like Germinates and Mirror Guys. As you pointed out, there aren't too many of those. Every now and then we have a set that has like one that's at that level, but I wouldn't say A has to be just those cards. I think when you pointed out stuff like Cadaverous Tilling Red, that's very much an A as well, because it relates to your win condition in many ways. I think the way that I was thinking about it coming up with my grades was that if there's a certain card where if I can pull off its effect, say maybe twice in the game, that's my win condition. That's straight up. Most of the time, I will win those games like when that happens. So that's like the A's, and C's are kind of most of the cards are C's, are like somewhere in the C range, because that is typically most of the deck's gonna be just full of those cards. And then D's are the cards that you're just absolutely embarrassed to play. And a bit of a spoiler, I do have one F, because I was like, this card is so bad, I cannot put it in the D with everything else. I just made up a new grade and put an F in that one.
Would you, as a spoiler for this card, but would you rather play Crack Bauble than this card?
You know,
we can get to it. It's all right.
Honestly, maybe. Yes, actually, maybe.
You might have just speculated on a different draft pick rather than taking this. Yeah, I think it's a good shout, especially around the A's, because A's are these cards that, to your point, I do think people think, if it's not a Manifestations of Mirai guy, is it an A? But an A for me is, especially when you think about the rare commons, it's a card that I'm first picking. It's a card that if I got it 5th or 6th, I would see it as a signal because it's so strong, or it's really powerful because it has a strong value effect and keeps you open, for instance. So I think that's how I look at the A's in draft and limited in general.
Yeah, I would say Germinate and Mirror Guy are more the exceptions. Honestly, if we were doing a set review for that, I would put them in S. I would make up a new label for them rather than put them in A, because they're obviously stronger than that. They are literally win conditions in of themselves, whereas A is just more of a, hey, this is a strong card. You resolve a couple of these, and you're really far ahead, or you've won from that.
Yep. Agree. Cool. We do have a couple of just, general notes, and then just want to touch on some of the abilities and keywords and the tokens before we get fully into the set and start breaking down our grades for the Hunted. First of all, there are some red-only cards that aren't Draconic. So traditionally, Draconic cards, red, but there are some red-only varieties of cards, so they only come in red, that aren't actually Draconic, which we'll talk about when we get there. And there's also some cards that are also printed in other colors exclusively, which we'll talk about as we get to them. So the set it's very unique in terms of they've really started to push the boat out on design on some of these things of thinking about how to use the color, the colors, the pitch values, blue, yellow, red, and how to be a bit more strategic about having cards that are really almost all playable or impactful, except for maybe Pankaj's F.
Yeah, I do think I do want to shout them out for that. I think they are playing around a lot more with just a collation of the packs, like reducing the number of yellows, for example, because I mean, anyone who's drafted Bright Lights knows how that feels, where it comes like you're halfway through the pack and it's just bananas left, right? It's just a whole bunch of yellows. And I love that they're sort of tuning that knob when it comes to balance, because one thing about Flesh and Blood Draft, which is something that's just been the case since the beginning, is that you don't get as many cards to put in a deck as you do in something like Magic, because we don't have a land system or something, right? So you have 42 cards, 30 of them go in your deck, and then on top of that you get equipment. So the fact that they're moving towards having more and more impactful cards within the packs, I think, is absolutely the way to go, and I'm thrilled that they're moving in that direction.
Yeah, I think it makes draft very interesting. So, yeah. Abilities, effects, keywords, types. There's a few things that I want to cover. So, attack reactions are most definitely back, which we'll be talking about. Defense reactions are most definitely back, which is very interesting. We won't get to it today, but at the Majestic level in particular, there's some interesting things that are happening there, which we'll talk about probably in the pod in the next 2 weeks. Traps are back in a new look form. Some traps that we haven't seen before. Stealth as a keyword is back. Draconic, of course, as a talent is back, and newly marked is back, which I will bring up now on screen. You can see marked there. When you are marked until an opponent hits you. Good to remember, because that is going to be very relevant through this whole set review.
Yeah, we covered this a little bit when we were talking last week about how interesting marked is going to be in Limited and in CC, and I think if you've tuned into the coverage of the World Premiere, we've already started to see that, letting certain hits come through so that the mark conditions taken off of you, and also particularly the sequencing around if the opponent is marked, maybe skipping out on a lower value attack because you want to make sure they're marked when you send your disruptive stealth attack if you're Arachne.
Yeah. 100%. Well, let's quickly cover off these tokens that we're going to see in the set a little bit. So we've already spoken about Marked and the Marked token that you'll find in your packs. I want to talk about the Graphene as well, the Assassin token weapon, dagger one-handed. How good do you think this token is?
I think it's very good. I think in particular... okay, it is dependent on the stage of the game that you're in, and I think later in the game it is very, very good, and we definitely saw this as well. If you can get to the point where your opponent is marked and at a low life total, like 1 obviously is ideal, but even if they're in the 2-3 range, where they're forced to block this, which means they'll continue to remain marked, which means this is just a Kodachi that you basically have. I think that is absolutely a win condition that's available to Arachne Marionette, and it's also very important to point out the Graphene Calicera has stealth, which means that if you are base Arachne, it means you aren't one of the Agents of Chaos, and you attack with this, it's actually coming in for 2 with go again, and that is very, very relevant.
Yeah, 100%. I think the thing to note with Graphene is you have to be strategic with when you make the Graphenes. If you do it, you throw a dagger early, the other dagger, the Mark of the Huntsman early, and then equip a Graphene. Sometimes you can get yourself into a little bit of trouble, to be honest, I think. But to your point, late in the game where you're able to utilize it, or you find a good spot to throw the Mark of the Huntsman, and maybe you don't have a lot of good ways to get it back, to bring it back to play, but you can get yourself a Graphene, then that's when it's really going to shine, I think. But yeah, I think it can be a bit of a trap to fall into too early, to just be like, I'm throwing the marks early and I'm just going to equip Graphenes, because your opponent when they have a lot of life, they can actually play around that a little bit more. So,
and that's exactly where the sequencing comes in, right? It's not only just the sequencing of the turn itself, because if it's too early in the game and they are higher life total, they'll just let the Graphene hit, and then the mark is taken off of them, and then it turns off like half your deck, because a lot of Arachne's cards care about your opponents being marked, and it also turns off your ability because your opponent's no longer marked. But later in the game, they're forced to block this. It keeps the mark on. You're just getting free cards from them every time. So yeah, it's sequencing both in the terms of when the micro of this current turn cycle, but also in a macro sense of where in the game you are at. That affects how powerful this token is.
Yeah. And while the Graphene is very important for Arachne, on the flip side, for our 2 Draconic heroes, fealty is something we're going to be talking a lot about, so it's important to know exactly what fealty does, how it works. It is a Draconic token aura. It is instant. Destroy this. The next card you play this turn is Draconic. And at the beginning of your end phase, if you haven't created a fealty token or played a Draconic card this turn, then you destroy this. You destroy your fealty token. So you'll continue to prove your loyalty to pledge your fealty and grow. We're going to be talking a lot about fealty, especially when it comes to Fang, but also definitely with Syndra as well.
With Fang, fealty definitely seems to be a little more of a you kind of need this. You need some amount of marking and fealty generation for your deck to work. But with Syndra, that's one I'm actually most curious about, because I think this is where we will start to see archetypes.
Yes.
It's around fealty tokens. Whether you're the sort of Syndra that's just playing a bunch of Ninja and Draconic attacks to just go wide and just do normal Syndra things, or are you a marking fealty-based Syndra that's really trying to get payoffs from all the base, like non-talented ninja cards that care about being made draconic? So that's in terms of a how do I say it, complexity level. I could see that being a little bit of a complicating factor for Syndra specifically, and that's why I'm looking at for the impact this fealty token has in the shape of the draft format.
Yep. Right, let's rip into it, because this set is quite big as well, so we've got a lot to get through. So we are going to move relatively fast as we go through things, and we're going to start with the Assassin class with our Chaos Assassin hero, Arachne. The young Arachne is Web of Deceit. Right, so if you are a video watcher, you are going to, of course, see the cards. If you are an audio listener, then we will also be reading the cards as we go as well. But Arachne Web of Deceit, just to refresh everyone's memory, says your attacks with stealth that are attacking a marked hero get +1 attack, and when this hits, this gets go again. At the beginning of your end phase, if an opponent is marked, you become a random agent of chaos. We're not going to read through the agents of chaos. We've spoken about them on the pod before, but if you want to go and look them up, you should, because 1 in 6 chance, obviously, that you can become one of those specific agents of chaos when you trigger this ability.
The +1 when your opponent is marked is so incredibly impactful that there are definitely moments that you're an agent of chaos and you wish that you were the base Marionette instead.
Do you actually think that Arachne, if it was just the base Web of Deceit all the time, would just be better in Limited, potentially?
In Limited? Okay, I think my short answer is no. I think just simply because of deck construction wise, you are sort of forced to put a whole bunch of stealth attacks.
Yeah.
And put reacts in your deck. And that just leads you with hands many times where you can't convert.
Yeah.
And I think that half the agents of chaos for almost all of them, giving you the option to discard an assassin card to be able to convert your hand is very, very important. And Arachne Web of Deceit sort of technically does it, but it's tied to an on-hit, which you can't guarantee. So my short answer is no, but I will say that they've done an incredible job of making the base hero ability also incredibly strong, to the point where you do miss it when you're an agent of chaos sometimes. So I think it doesn't like feel bad if you weren't able to. It does feel like you can't mark them, but it doesn't necessarily feel bad when you revert back to this form. You're not like, oh, I'm underpowered now. You're like, wait, no, this ability is also sick.
Cool. Want to talk about the Assassin Weapon Dagger one-handed token, which is the Mark of the Huntsman as well, which says once per turn action, 2 resources attack, go again, and when this hits a hero, you may choose to destroy this and mark them. If this is attacking a marked hero, this gets +1 attack, and it has base 1 attack. The Mark of the Huntsman and its many interactions is one of the things that I think, as you get used to this limited format, as you show to your pre-release, is something to think about. There's so many different and intricate ways that you can do cool things with marking your opponent to set up what you might turn into, to be, I guess, an agent of chaos in the future, to set up payoffs for your other cards. The Mark of the Huntsman and their use is just so important in Limited.
I think your success as Arachne Limited is really going to come down to how well you understand when you can actually destroy this dagger to go ahead and mark your opponent. One other thing I want to call out is that this format does seem to be on the faster side. It's near uprising levels of damage output, which I think it just works really well with this dagger as well, because obviously these daggers are one-time uses. You have 2 of them, and across the game you get to destroy them twice. You have some retrieval effects sometimes, but in the base game of it, you're going to be able to use this twice. But because the game is short enough, you don't feel super gimped when you use these too early, but it's still only twice in, like, say, a 4 or 5 turn game, so you still have to be very, very on conscious. You'd be very particular about when you actually go ahead and use the destroy to mark them effect. I also want to point out the +1 when attacking a marked hero. That's not nothing either.
No.
That's actually also very significant.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, to be fair, I think because of the speed of the format, like you say, you're not double daggering very often. But if you use one too early and then you have the prime opportunity to push an extra 3 to 4 damage by marking your opponent or utilize your hand, and all of a sudden you have no Mark of the Huntsman left by turn 3 or 4, and actually the turn might go 5 or 6 games, that you can find yourself in a really awkward spot. Once your opponent knows you don't have access to that dagger, that changes the game significantly. The dynamic really shifts.
And that's where your deck construction comes into play, right? You should know which stealth attacks you really want to make sure your opponent's marked for, and you make sure that you have your Mark of the Huntsman for that. Or then that's also where the Graphene Killursa comes in. Do you have a bunch of Graphene Killursa generators? So you want to definitely make sure that you've used one of these, so you have an empty weapons zone to go ahead and equip that other dagger as well. It's very, very intricate.
Yep. Right, let's get straight into the cards. We're going to lead off with Bite, which is an assassin attack action. We're looking at the red one, but it is a cycle for Bite. It is a 0 cost, 3 defense, 3 attack, stealth, rare. Says when this attacks a hero, you may have target dagger you control deal 1 damage to them. If damage is dealt this way, the dagger has hit, destroy the dagger. So, Pankaj, I mean, with this one, you don't even need to hit with your Mark of the Huntsman in combat. You can just biff it straight at them to guarantee that you mark them. And because this is when this attacks and not, later in the combat chain, you're also going to get the Arachne Web of Deceit effect if you are Arachne Web of Deceit, right?
The super interesting thing about the Arachne cards is that you have to look at these cards and think about whether you're an Agent of Chaos or whether you're base Arachne before you try and evaluate the card. I think, to your point, if you are base Arachne, you're going to get the +1 and the on-hit go again. If you're base Arachne, but if you're an Agent of Chaos, this is probably not the stealth attack you really want to send at your opponent.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, that's where maybe, utilizing your arsenal comes into play as well. I think Arachne is as a hero that needs to really understand its arsenal as well because of the duality of the gameplay that you're going to experience.
Yeah, exactly. So, what grade did you give this?
Do you know what? I think Bite is phenomenal at red. Even with what you said, I agree with that. But I think what this lets you do is Web of Deceit, which you're going to play, half the game at, more or less, mostly more. I actually have this at a B+. I think Bite red is very good. I think the other two, the yellows, blue, is not. I'm a little bit less excited about, but I think the red is particularly good.
I had it at C+. I do like the sort of that you get your dagger effect without needing to pitch to it, because there's many times where you pitch to your dagger and that just feels terrible, right? Yeah. And you sort of don't give them an opportunity to block it as well. You sort of guarantee mark it. My worry for this card is that you're marking them and then this is the attack that's on the chain. So it's useful if you are trying to go wide, but you are giving your opponent a lot of agency of letting the marked condition be removed on something that doesn't matter, which is this Bite, which was my problem with this. So really the best part about this is that you can use the go again from Arachne's ability if this goes ahead and hits. But but what are you going again into? Because the opponent can just choose not to be marked anymore. So what's your follow-up? Like more raw damage? Like sure, like that's potentially an archetype, but potentially strong. But I think there are more effective things for me to want to flick my dagger for, because that dagger's gone, and you don't have you may not necessarily have a good way to recur it. So you have just use your dagger and use a mark condition on something that's vanilla damage, and I think there's better ways for you to do that.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. I think that's the other thing that's worth considering as we go through these set reviews, is that LSS get better and better at making all the cards, I don't want to say flatter, but they're better in different archetypes. That just is the reality of the game that we're developing into. And so I think more and more when we have these limited set reviews, the discussion is infinitely more important than the grade, but what the grade does give you is an indication of maybe just the base level power of this card. So we're about a grade, half, 3/4 of a grade between I'm at a B, you're at a C+. So the card's obviously good. How good, it's going to depend on your deck.
They do, they've done an excellent job of also obscuring some of these cards. Like, this is just a tricky card to evaluate. Yes. It's not only is it game context dependent, it's also the rest of your deck dependent. Are you just trying to be a more aggressive version? Then maybe this card finds a place. But if you're on the more disruptive defensive side, then it probably isn't quite it. But yeah, to your point, I mean, we're both in the definitely like C plus or higher range, because in the end, it's a stealth card that blocks 3. and that's something you just want. That is the definition of a role player.
Yeah, cool.
For Arachne.
Yeah, I agree. All right, we're going to move on to... do you want me to take this one?
Yeah, all right.
So we've got Whittle from Bone. This is an assassin action attack at rare again. 0 cost, 3 defense, 3 attack. As we see with majority of stealth cards, we're looking at the red one here. And it says, when this attacks a marked hero, equip a Graphene... how do you say it? Graphene Calicera?
Calicera, I think.
Token. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, there's not a lot of ways to equip the Calicera. So where do we land on this one?
So I have this at a C. I don't think I have a single one of the stealth attacks below a C, just because, like I said earlier, that's the definition of a role player in the Arachne deck. You want to have a whole bunch of these stealth attacks. All the Agents of Chaos, I guess, except Trapdoor and Tarantula. Most of the Agents of Chaos care about stealth cards. Their base Arachne cares about stealth cards. The reactions care about stealth cards. And they all block 3, so you're happy to have them. Why I have this at a C and not something higher, despite us talking quite a bit about Graphene Calicera and how important that is in the endgame, is that, again, you have to be attacking a marked hero to get this payoff, and the Graphene Calicera does its best in the endgame when they're marked. This card isn't the one that's helping you get there, and, once again, consuming the mark on something that's vanilla damage just like this is, in my opinion, not the best thing you could be doing when your opponent's marked, given how non-trivial it is to mark your opponent.
Yeah, I think it comes down to just I have this at a B minus. I do think I do think the Calicera is powerful and the access is fairly premium, and this is a rare, so I do think it is good, but again, like to your point, right? Like marking, if you think the game is 5 to 6 turns, realistically, how many times is the opponent going to be marked? It's difficult. We're going to talk about some of the ways to mark your opponent, but each time you mark, even with some of these cards that are just discard to mark, it comes at an opportunity cost of something else you could have been doing, and so it makes you reflect on, well, what's my most premium stealth cards that I want to have in my deck.
And not only is it just an opportunity cost of getting the mark on them, if you let them consume the mark on vanilla damage, like Whittle from the Bone, you're not flipping either.
Yep.
And I think that's very important.
Potentially you're not flipping, right? You might have another way to mark in the turn.
Yeah.
Which I think those cards, when we get to them, the ones that, those are going to be some of the premium cards we talk about. So,
yeah. But the end game, getting a Graphene Calicera obviously is very, very strong.
Yeah.
Should I grab the next one?
Yeah, last thing I was going to say with Whittle to the Bone is I actually think for that reason I quite like the blue of this card.
I could see that. I actually almost put the blue in my CC deck. I think I did have that for a while. I was trying it out. Because I am trying to build Marinette in CC. Yeah, I was trying the blue. Alright, so next card we have Stains of the Redback. This is a 1-cost assassin attack reaction that blocks for 3. If the defending hero is marked, this costs 1 less to play, which means this will just be a free +3 react. And it says, target attacks with stealth, gets +3, and go again. So effectively, kind of like Hiss from MST, the one cost +3 with go again. It's a different condition though. Hiss had a pitch of blue. This one has target attack with stealth, but this also can be made free if the opponent's marked.
I like this card. I mean, I think this.
Yeah, I like it a lot.
This card works no matter which version of Arachne you are, and I think those are the cards that are really premium. I think a card that that go again clause on this is going to let you utilize your hand no matter what form of Arachne you are, even if you're not they're not marked and you come in as Web of Deceit with the stealth cards. So I think this is one of the best cards for Assassin, honestly.
Yeah, I have this as an A. I did have it at a B+ at first, but I went back and looked through all my grades, and I was like, wait, no, this is absolutely an A. You would first pick slam this for sure and be very, very happy about it if you end up in Arachne, and I think your Arachne deck is markedly improved, no matter what the archetype is. We were talking about the more disruptive defensive archetype or the vanilla damage archetype. This helps both of them, right? A pump is exactly what you want when you're trying to disrupt your opponent from on hits, and the go again, like whether it's just always going to be good, and the fact that it can be free as well, it's incredible.
Yeah, it has a built-in kind of, you're already going to get the go again because your Web of Deceit, and you play this on your 1 stealth attack to pump it over. Okay, well, it also costs free because of that. So it even has like a kind of almost fail-safe in it. So yeah, I have this at A-. I think this card is very, very good.
Also, I do want to point out, some people might miss this. The marked thing, your opponent being marked, only makes this cost 1 less. You will always get the +3 and go again, even if you're resolving this card on a stealth card, which I think some people might miss. The floor of it is a hiss, basically, as long as you're targeting a stealth attack. So yeah, I think that's incredible.
Cool. Next up, we've got Orb Weaver Spinneret. This is a assassin action card at rare again. It defends for 3. Cost 0 and says equip a Griffing, a Callisto token. Your next attack with stealth this turn gets +3 attack, and this has go again. What are you thinking, Pankaj, of this card?
I like this card. I have this as a B. To me, this is the better version of Whittle from Bone. Not only is the Callisto not tied to your opponent being marked, you also get to put your +3 buff on something that you potentially actually care about. Whereas Whittle from the Bone, the opponent needs to be marked, and you're sending this vanilla damage at them to consume the mark. Whereas this is you get the dagger regardless, and then you can go pump something else, something that you actually care about, especially if the opponent is marked.
Yeah, well, yeah. If they're marked, you can swing with this first, and then have the pump afterwards. Get the pump on the dagger. Sorry.
Yeah, that's also a play line. So just in terms of flexibility, I put this... I mean, I guess technically Will from Bone is more flexible because that's a 1-card hand, whereas this one isn't. But in terms of power, this is the card I'd want in my deck before I put Whittle from the Bone in. So I have it as a B.
Yeah, I have it as B+. So I agree. I think this is the better version of that. Again, any card, I think, that works no matter what flavor of Arachne you are on any given turn is going to be premium. So yeah, B+, easy win.
Sounds good. Moving on, we have a reprint, Hayden. We have Backstab, but I believe this is only in red.
Correct.
This is cost 0, assassin, action, attack, blocks for 3, stealth. We should maybe have a name for this. Just 0 cost, 3 power, block 3, stealth attack. It's the formula for all of these assassin cards. This one says defense reaction cards cannot be played this chain link.
I'm going to refer to it as standard stealth, so we can just say it's a standard stealth attack because that's the metrics. Yeah, I like that. Good to see it. First of many reprints in this set. Actually, we're going to continually see it from LSS. They're going to utilize reprints in interesting ways, and this time they only reprint the red. I think this card kind of sucks.
I have it at C. I wouldn't... I mean, again, like I said, all the standard stealth cards for me are all at least a C. I didn't have anything lower than that. This is one of those cards where I was looking at it, and remember earlier I talked about how if you're base Marinette, I forgot which card we're talking about, but there's a difference in evaluation depending on which version of Arachne you are.
Yeah.
And I think if you are one of the Agents of Chaos that has disruption tied to them, so Funnel Web or Black Widow, this card you'd really want. We touched at the top of the show about attack reactions and defense reactions being in this format. And I think defense reactions are premium and very, very strong, and people will pick them highly, and people will have them. So I could see the effect of this being relevant as long as you can tie it to some sort of disruption, which is why it was a little bit tied to whether you're an Agent of Chaos that has disruption. So there are hoops, which is why I'm not higher than a C, but I'm not embarrassed to have this in my deck.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. And I think, if you've got something like a pump plus a disruption, and then your opponent's like, well, how many cards am I... you all of a sudden, you're putting them in awkward positions. So, yeah, I think I have this honestly, I have this at like a C-. I don't love this because I think it has a lot of stipulation for it to be good. And even then, sometimes it's just going to be like, well, they're just going to either not care or they're just going to throw 2 cards in front of it and then eat the pump. They never had the defense rate. I think it's fine. I think it's fine, basically.
Fair enough.
I actually think it would be good if it came in blue, so maybe that's why they didn't print it in blue.
Yeah, I could see that.
Next up, we've got Defang the Dragon. This is another card that only comes in red and is an assassin action attack. It's what are we calling it? The bog standard a stealth attack archetype, so 0 cost 3 and 3. At common, has stealth, says contract, though it is a contract card as well. You are contracted to hit a marked hero named Fang. Whenever you complete this contract, draw a card. So a very powerful ability, and also just worth noting that the contract lasts the turn. So this is not the first time you do it. It's for the turn.
It's not like the other stealth cards, which are more... Yeah, it's for this entire combat chain. It's not like the other stealth cards, which is just, on that chain link hitting. Which, at first, I didn't know how much stock to put on that until I watched that one... There was one stream game on day 2. It was like one of the early games on day 2 of the world premiere, where the Arachne sent this at the Fang and then used their arms to mark them again, and then sent the dagger and then drew off the dagger as well, and drew off another card after that. I was like, the ceiling on this is pretty freaking high. I'm still not sure how highly I would pick this, though. So I've graded this at a C as well. I could see it being higher, or maybe sideboard grade. This is probably the best sideboard grade card. I'm not gonna open a pack and be like, oh, this is my pack one, pick one, and I'm really stoked for it. But I would like to have this in my list at the end. So yeah, I've put this at a C. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm busting out the sideboard grade here. I think this is, as you say, a perfect opportunity for a sideboard grade. I'm giving it a B- sideboard grade. Otherwise, honestly, I'm giving it a D. I think if you're not playing against that hero, you don't want this card in your deck, right? It's a pure vanilla stealth card, so it's worse than any of the other stealth cards when you're not turning on the ability. But when you are, I think it isn't. So you pointed out a really interesting interaction, right, where you can really utilize the contract ability to go multiple threatens of the draw card, or even multiple triggers of drawing the card, and that is really strong. But it is hard, it's not super easy to set up. So I think for me, it sits in that B range as a sideboard card.
Yeah, I think I ended up sort of grading it to somewhere in the middle, which is why I left it at a C. But yeah, I think your grade completely makes sense. But sideboard B, and then if you're not playing against Fang, you'd be embarrassed to have this in your list if you're against a Syndra or an Arachne. If you're embarrassed to have this in your 30 that you present to them.
Yeah. And then why don't we just talk about Extinguish the Flames while they're here, because it's exactly the same card, except instead of Fang, it says a marked hero named Syndra.
Yeah, I don't think there's a marked difference on how highly you pick one or the other. Maybe as the draft meta develops, if maybe people are more lean towards Fang more than Syndra or something, maybe you could go with that. But at least for now, I think they just have the exact same grade and the exact same discussion around them.
Yeah, I mean, if you want a little tip or trick, the nuance might be you pass a really good Syndra card, and then late game you wheel one, late pack 3 or something, you wheel one of these and you slam it because you're like, well, I know someone's got X good Syndra card over whatever, but yeah, that's minute.
Next, we've got Mark of the Black Widow, another standard stealth card, and this one has, when this hits a marked hero, they banish a card from their hand.
This one's hard to...
I think this card's good.
Yeah, I do think this one is... we were talking before, I keep saying the ones that are always relevant no matter which Arachne flavor you are, they're good, right? And I think this one kind of does that, right? Because either even if you're Web of Deceit, if they're marked, you're threatening that if they bust the mark, you get a return out of it, which I think is really important. But you're also putting it to a break point at a 4 attack. And then if you're not Web of Deceit, you're potentially someone, like you say, that has a combat trick, that can affect the board state. So I think this is one of the better ones, honestly.
Yeah, I have this at a B. I think if you get to resolve 2 of these in a game, with the marked effect on it, and they banish a card from the hand, you are probably winning that game. So I have this at a B. There's just my favorite thing about this. My favorite thing with this class of stealth marked cards is that you fork your opponent in that when they're marked and you send this at them, they want to stop the odd hit, but that means they remain marked and keep your other stuff turned on, especially your base Arachne text, where you get to flip into something else. So for that reason, I think this is of stealth attacks you want to fill your deck up as much of.
Yeah, I was at a B-. You've talked me up to a B, so I'll take it. Next up, we've got Mark of the Final Web, which is another standard stealth archetype in terms of cost and power. It is a common, and it says when this hits a marked hero, banish a card in their arsenal. How do you compare this to Black Widow?
I put this on B-. It's not as good as Black Widow, but it's still in the similar realm of these are the stealth cards I want in my deck, more so than the most of the other ones.
So I mostly agree. I do think there is a number of these that I think you maybe max. It's archetypal again. I think at some point though, some of these others can have a bigger impact on the given Arachne or Chaos, Agent of Chaos, or base Arachne, and I do think that is worth keeping. Like Bite, for instance, when we were talking earlier about Bite, we started with Bite. When Bite does its thing, I think it's one of them. It's going to be super relevant. It's going to be one of the most powerful stealth cards you might have access to. But when it's kind of not Bite's time to shine, it's not doing a lot. Whereas I think, to your point, Black Widow, I really do hold it up highly. I think the arsenal as opposed to the card from hand adds a layer that opens up the opponent to playing defense reactions, open up to not having the arsenal, for instance. So I do definitely have it lower. I have this at a C+ in comparison.
It is definitely noticeably worse than Black Widow, for sure, and I'm with you on that. I think the defense reaction point in particular is very, very apt for this topic, because that's kind of where they'd want to park the defense reactions, like in the arsenal. So it doesn't matter that this is coming for a breakpoint, or the on-hit doesn't matter, they just play it on this, and then you're like, okay, you just didn't really get the on-hit.
Mm-hmm. Onto a card I do like.
Alright, so it's Mark the Prey, another standard stealth card. And this just says, when this hits a hero, mark them. And I really like this because I'm very happy with ways to mark my opponent that don't involve my dagger. Because as we spoke about at the top of the pod, at the top of this section, is that you have a limited number of uses of your daggers to mark them. So adding more decent-ish cards in your deck to mark your opponents is just going to be very, very useful.
Yeah, where do you rate it?
I've put this at a C+.
Yep, I've got this exactly the same point. I think this is like just a really easy mid-draft pickup that you'd be happy to have, or just the sort of card that you're like, yep, this is my 24th, 25th card, and I'm really happy with it in the deck. It's doing its job.
Also, so far, I think it might be useful to just point out, when we have been grading these cards, we have been talking about the reds mostly.
Yes.
And if we're going to grade something else, we would point out, this in blue might be a little bit better. And we do have that for some of the other cards, but unless specified, we're talking about the red.
Yeah, and I think it's important we're talking about the red. I think generally what you can apply is that the yellow or blue version, if we don't talk about them specifically, they're probably just coming in at like that C to even C- mark, and especially in the yellow's case, C- to maybe D+ mark.
Yeah, I could see the yellows being that range for sure.
Some of them are going to be good, though. Some of the effects, like for instance, I think, Mark the Black Widow yellow. I'm not going to be upset if they're my sort of, maybe 29th, 30th card in my deck. That's not going to make me sad. I don't think.
Agreed.
Yeah, cool. All right, next up we have Plunge the Prospect. It is another standard stealth archetype card in terms of its stats. And this one says, if this is attacking a marked hero, this gets +1. Thoughts here?
Yeah, it's solid. I give this a C. I particularly thought this might be best when you are already an Agent of Chaos.
Yes.
Like the turn after you flip into an Agent of Chaos where your opponent is marked, you get to have a stealth card at a breakpoint, because that has been the biggest pain. I think we spoke about how when you flip into an Agent of Chaos, sometimes you miss the Marinette's base text. Well, this kind of gives you the Marinette's base text when you're not Marinette.
Yep.
I think that's important, especially if you are one of those Agents of Chaos that has disruption, right? Like Funnel Web or Black Widow. Mm-hmm. This is now base 4 coming at them. And then you can pump it up by 3.
Yeah, this is one I think this is a solid C, but this is one I actually think that, honestly, all colors of this are kind of a C, because even the blue as a resource card is going to give you ways to potentially utilize your hand, to your point, when you are not Web of Deceit, and otherwise you're Web of Deceit, and it's a good resource card, so blocks 3, etc. So, yeah, I think it's just a classic C.
The next card, though, is super, super interesting. Reaper's Call, another standard stealth card, which has no text while it's on the combat chain. Instead, it has instant. Discard this. Mark target opposing hero. This is a fascinating card, I think.
Yeah, I think to be honest, this is probably one of the first times I'm like, the blue is in the B range for me, and then the red, for instance, is probably like a C, probably a C+. I think you need access to some of these cards for tricks, for in-game considerations, for early game turn 1, turn 0 considerations, and this is such a versatile one because it's a stealth card, so it can trigger your stealth keyword abilities. When you have cards that only target stealth, it can be your mark to set up turns, and also it just blocks a 3, so it kind of does it all.
I give this C+ for the blue specifically,
yeah,
and then C for the other colors. And I think, actually, there's an interesting discussion around yellows in Arachne, to be honest. They're not as bad as yellows in some other heroes, particularly because Arachne doesn't really use full 3 resources very, very well. They're typically kind of just pitching to dagger and then sending a 0 cost. So they're usually quite okay if they're only pitching yellow. A lot of times it's just floating 1 anyway. So especially if it's a yellow Reaper's Call, I feel like that's totally serviceable. But yeah, the blue one for me is higher than the yellow or the red, and I have that at a C+. We touched on this a little bit. Ways to mark your opponent that don't involve your dagger are just going to be good.
Yep, agree. Yeah, no, I think this is this card is very, very solid. All right, next up we've got Scuttle the Canal. So this is again, standard stealth card. And this one says, when this attacks a marked hero, this gets go again. Well, we were talking just before, Pankaj, about, I guess, ways to play when you're not Web of Deceit. But also, even if you are Web of Deceit, on the second chain link, this could also be relevant potentially.
I like this more when you are an Agent of Chaos. Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is, again, one of those cards where when your base Arachne is a little whatever, it's like 4... with go again. But again, like that's my thing about base Arachne, is that then you are giving your opponent a way to remove the mark in a way that doesn't really matter. Which means you're not going to flip into an Agent of Chaos, and if you have, like, what's your follow-up to this? It's guaranteed just going to be more vanilla damage unless you have some other way to mark in between, is like my take of this card. But if you're already an Agent of Chaos, there's disruption on that, then this is incredible. So I have this at a C. I think it's fine. I'm not going to be super thrilled that I picked this up, but I'm not embarrassed. I don't hate it either.
Yeah, I do think I have this at like a C plus in the right deck, maybe a B minus range. I think where this is going to shine potentially, no matter which Arachne you are, is when you are playing a build that wants to utilize 4 and 5 card hands. You have some vanilla damage, like good vanilla damage to throw at the end of chains. Like there are some good 1 costs and 2 costs that Arachne can play in this set, so it's not out of the question. But I think that's going to be a bit more specific, and mostly this is going to probably sit in the C range. To your point.
Next, we have Razor's Edge. Once again, another reprint. This is a 0-cost assassin attack reaction that blocks for 3, and it says target attack action card with stealth gets +3 power. I love this card. I think it's really, really good. I think your strongest Arachne decks are going to have at least 1, maybe even 2 copies of this card. I've put this in the B to B plus range.
Yeah, worth pointing out this is only in red in this set. Right. Yeah. Yep. They've just brought it back at red, but I have a B plus. I think this card is very good, as you say. My note was, this card's still real good.
Yeah, it just again, I think our through line for the cards we've rated highly are the ones that no matter which form of Arachne you are, no matter what sort of archetype that you are, you're gonna love these cards, and this is absolutely. Whether you're Marinette, you maybe use this to guarantee the goal again hits, or just guarantee the on hit of the other thing, and also it doesn't require your opponent to be marked or anything. Nope. It's just straight up +3, so it always has to convert your hand, which is something that Arachne can struggle with, where they just draw too many stealth attacks and not enough ways to actually use all of them. When you have the tempo, for example, and this helps solve that. Yeah, and it's on a block 3 as well, so it's just even the floor is great.
Yeah, play it on a Glyphine as well, late game. It's just very good. I think this is sort of card I'm looking for. If you open up my seal pool, I'm looking for this. I'm looking for the red back. Right, these are the cards I'm looking for to be like, okay, do I have the commons that are going to help me support this archetype? Next up, we've got 2 sides to the blade. This is another assassin attack reaction at common, defense 3. This one costs 1 though and says choose 1. Target dagger attack gets +3 attack. Target attack action card with stealth gets +3, and when this hits a hero, mark them.
I have this at a B currently, but I could totally see myself being talked up to a B+. I think the underrated part about this, or the part that might be missed until you play with it a bunch, is that it can target daggers.
Yeah,
and I think that's just incredible once it comes to the end game state. I forget which card it was in Outsiders, but there was a similar attack reaction in Outsiders that blocked for 2 that you could target on your daggers. Do you remember which one I'm talking about, Hayden?
Outsiders dagger 2 you could target on daggers. I don't.
There was an attack reaction that you could play on your small little daggers, and you had to be careful of that as you got into those endgame states against Katsus and Benjis. And this is going to be in that similar spot, except it also blocks 3. And it's flexible enough that you can use it on your stealth attack as well.
Yeah.
And once again, it might sound like a little bit like a broken record, but you can mark your opponent without losing one of your Mark of the Huntsman. So just on all those fronts, I'm a big fan of this card.
Yep. No, I think this card is very good. This is B as well. I think, again, just same sort of thing. A card that no matter which form of Arachne you are on the given day, this card is going to have impact, and also just additional modality and flexibility. Also worth noting, this card again only in red on this one.
And not only does it let you push one of your on-hits through, like say Mark of the Funnel Web or something, and your opponent's already marked, you can +3, and this helps push that on-hit through, but it also keeps them marked, which is incredible. So you will either flip into an Agent of Chaos, or you get to do something else with it. I think that's next. We have Hunted or Hunter. This is a 0-cost Assassin's Defense reaction, and it's a trap. And it says, it's a trap in terms of the type line, I'm not talking about the variation of the card yet. When this defends and the attacking hero has played or activated an attack reaction, this chain link, they lose 1 life. And this also only comes in red.
Yeah, I think defense reactions are going to have a natural premium nature about them, but there is a few in the set. It's not like they're 1 or 2. There is 3 or 4 of these. I think in terms of the ability that this one has, it's not massively impressive. I think a 0 for 4 potential. There's one we're going to talk about which I think is phenomenal, for instance. But I do think this card is really solid, and because you can't run a million stealth cards. You do need to look for cards that diversify your the value your hands put out, and I think this card is a really reasonable version of that. So I kind of had this in the C+ to maybe in some matchups like where it's going to trigger, like the B- range.
I have a strange grading for this one. I have B, but in parentheses, first copy.
Oh yeah.
So I think the first copy is very much of a B. You do want to get, and I guess when I say first copy, it extends to defense reactions in general, not necessarily this specific card. Actually, not just defense reactions for Arachne specifically traps. I think your first copy of one of your traps is a B, and you should pick that highly. Your second and third is where you sort of get diminishing returns. And that's particularly because one of your Agents of Chaos doesn't have any text unless you have a trap in your deck. Specifically Trapdoor. I think you as Arachne should be walking around with 1 trap in your list. Minimum. So B for the first copy is my rating on this. The text itself is like fine. Into the other Arachne or into the other Fang, like sure, that's maybe live. But ultimately, it's the type line that I care about here for my grading.
Yep, fair enough. All right, we're going to move through now and talk about Draconic Ninja. Syndra, of course, is the hero that we're going to be referencing when we speak about these cards. Syndra says, whenever you hit a marked hero, create a fealty token, and once per turn instant 3 resources, equip up to 2 Draconic daggers from your graveyard. This costs 1 less to activate for each Draconic chain link you control. We're going to be talking about this quite a bit, especially when it comes to the Kunai of Retribution, which is the token dagger weapon for Syndra. Which is a Draconic Ninja weapon dagger one-handed, attacks for 1, says once per turn action, 1 resource, destroy this when the combat chain closes, attack with go again. Anything you want to kind of point out specifically about Syndra and the Kunais?
I think the biggest thing to talk about is, obviously there's a lot of relation to Phi back in Uprising, but the biggest thing to talk about is that she has a lot less of a reliance on Draconic chain starters. Whereas in Uprising Draft, you look at a Phi deck and be like, ooh, you don't have Draconic Chain starters? That's a terrible Phi deck. Syndra doesn't quite have that problem because the Kunais are Draconic starters in of themselves. And so with her deck, there's a lot more other things to think about, like the flicking and the recurring and payoffs for Draconic Chain links.
Yeah. So how good do you think the starters, I guess we'll get into them, do you think there's still good value, or do you think it's like if the same effect is on a non-Draconic card, for instance, or a non-chain starter, it's just as good?
I still have them higher in general compared to the non-Draconic ones, and that's particularly because I think Syndra's play patterns in Limited, from the small amount that I've spectated, it seems to be that she cycles back 1 dagger at a time.
Yes.
So on 1 turn, she's sending 1 dagger and a bunch of attacks, and then she buys back the one that was destroyed the previous turn. And then so next turn she's starting on 1 dagger again, and then she'll buy back the one that was in the graveyard, right? Because you don't have as many flick effects in Limited as you do in CC. In CC, she's buying back 2 always, right? Because she's always sending both to her yard. But in Limited, she's cycling 1 dagger at a time, which means you're in a sense only guaranteed 1 Draconic Chain Link per turn, which is your dagger that is not in your graveyard. So you still need more Draconic Links to make her ability cheaper. So in that sense, the Draconic Links inherently have like a -1 resource cost on them. In some,
some way,
weird
yeah,
evaluation
yeah.
of it. Yeah, so I do have those higher than like there's the base ninja ones, but I did want to point out that it's not exactly like Fi, where in Fi Uprising time you're like Ronin Renegade, I want that card for sure. It's not quite the same in Syndra.
No, I think that's a great call out. So I wanted to kind of, because I do agree, it's a lot of getting one back at a time. And just to be clear, when Pankaj says flick, it's something we'll talk about quite a bit. That is the action of throwing the dagger off the combat chain, so a card giving you the effect to throw, like we talked about bite at the start, at the opponent. So just worth noting that obviously that is what flick means. All right, let's get into it. I'll start with the first one. Demonstrate Devotion is the first card. This is a rare Draconic Ninja attack action. And at red, again, Draconic cards, so these will all be red. Costs 1, attacks for 4 and defense for 2, and says if you control 2 or more Draconic chain links, this gets go again, and when this attacks a hero, create a fealty token. What do you think?
I have this at a B. I think the condition is going to be fairly easy to meet, as we just spoke about. Even if you just have one Kunai Retribution, you send that, and you send this, and you still have one floating, and you have 2 Draconic chain links. You have an unconditional fealty token that doesn't care about the opponent being marked. And I think we'll get into this later on. Syndra doesn't seem to really want to like mark her opponents very much. Like her fealty side of things is smaller, but she does want some number of fealties. But I think like the additional step of needing to mark your opponent and everything is maybe not exactly where the best Syndra decks would land, but still having some unconditional fealties is going to be very, very good. And on a condition that's very, very easy for her. I like this card. Also, second Draconic Chain Link. You add one more, now your Syndra is free, and that last one can even be a 1-cost Draconic act.
Yes, yeah, and important to note when this says if you control 2 or more Draconic chain links, Demonstrate Devotion could be the second chain link, so it does count itself as being the 2 or more. So yeah, like you say, easy to trigger. I have this card at a B+. I think basically, a pretty easy to turn on leg tap for second chain. It's Draconic, which I think again is still premium, like you say. I also do think as well that having access, like playing this early and getting access to like that first fealty token to help you line up a potential easy double kunai return turn, for instance, I think is really, really impactful, honestly, and can be worth. I do think, for instance, you can look at this in some ways as almost being worth an extra damage, which I do think is quite good.
And depending on your fealty payoff, it could even be more than
100%.
that, which is I think where the grade can shift between, like, it can be like a B if you don't have too many fealty payoffs, but if you have, and we'll get to this other cards later, like some of the Art of the Dragon Claw cards, then this could easily get to the B+, maybe even the A, maybe not quite, but like, in really like the B+ range, where it's part of your win condition, where, as you say, you do this early, get your fealty, leave it around, later on you get a 1 for 7.
It's such a clean fealty maker as well. It's just, it's easy.
So, speaking of clean fealty makers, our next card, Display Loyalty, is a 0-cost, 3 attack, 2 defense, Draconic Ninja action attack, and it has the same text as Demonstrate Devotion, which is if you control 2 or more Draconic chain links, this gets go again, and when this attacks a hero, create a fealty token. I gave this the same grade. I just said it's a B as well for exactly the same reasons as Demonstrate Devotion.
Yeah, I have this at the same grade as well, B+, but the more I think about this, I think this should be at least a subgrade, like a submark higher, honestly, because there's just more flexibility to this card on your turn structure. So, I don't know, maybe I even have this at an A-. Like, I think this card is really, really good.
I think it is good. Here's the thing, I could see arguments for either way, where you give it a subgrade higher or a subgrade lower.
Because the damage.
Syndra's... Because her cost structure, especially if you go into like the sort of our most basic Syndra line, which is you have 1 dagger, and then which you want to swing, and then you have 2 floating to do the rest of your turn. And if you're putting a 0 cost in there, what are you doing with the remaining 2 floating? The sort of base turn structure thing that we were talking about. So it could sort of just be contextual. I mean, obviously this one's way more flexible, and you can just go 0 cost into this. I think this is particularly good on the turns where, for whatever reason, suppose you send 2 daggers in the previous turn, and you have 0 daggers right now. This is obviously good because it pairs very well with some other 0-cost starter. So yeah, maybe you're right, it should be slightly higher, but I don't know, I feel like there'll definitely be situations where I'm like, oh, I had floating anyway, and wish I could have spent it on something.
I'm going to keep it the same. I'm going to say it's the same. I guess the question is, pack one, pick one. They're both in the pack, and you're a dirty Draconic Force, Draconic Ninja Force. Which one are you taking?
Ooh, that's a good. I think I might go for Devotion, but I hope that's not just me trying to stick to my guns and being an idiot.
I'm unsure. I'm not sure. Honestly, I might flip a coin day one. All right, next up, we have Wrath of Retribution. This is a Draconic Ninja attack action at rare, defense for 3, attacks for 3, cost 3, and is legendary. And it says this costs 1 less to play for each Draconic chain link you control. When this attacks, daggers you control get +1 attack and cost 1 less to activate this combat chain. Important to note, it is combat chain, and it has go again. So is this just a 2-card 7, or is it a lot better than that?
Wait, what? I had this pretty low. I had this at a C, and I think I might put it a C minus.
Oh.
How are you pulling this? Okay. So here's the thing. You need to have enough Draconic Chainlinks before you use this, right? And those cannot be your daggers, because otherwise this thing costs 3. Unless you have some way to recur your dagger in the middle of the combat chain, which there aren't too many of.
Yeah.
Right. So ideally, you have other Draconic Chainlinks, and then you send your daggers. And they get +1 each. So, unless you have a way to send the daggers, rebuy them. Send the daggers,
inflict them,
get them destroyed, and rebuy them all on the same combat chain. You're looking at a card whose ceiling is a 0 for 5. That's most of the time.
Yeah.
Which is if you got 3 other chain links first, and then you send this, and then your 2 daggers, this was a 0 for 5. But there was a lot of hoops you had to go through. So for me, I kind of am just like this. This is a CC card to me, not a limited one. I have this at a, I have this at a C minus. I think.
Yeah, I mean the one I don't disagree. Honestly, I think this card is not particularly great. I think there is going to be some build around. So I actually had this at like a build around B, but I think generally it's like a C. But I do think, one I guess a floor conversation you could have is that you pitch your blue. You attack with this, and then you attack with your 2 daggers, 7 damage, right? Technically for 2 cards, but that's not a good use of the kunais. If you even have them.
Isn't that 3 cards? If you're pitching a blue for this, then you need to pitch a blue for your other daggers as well, right? Was that
they cost 1 less to activate, right?
So you still needed earlier chain links. So then it's not exactly a floor. Yeah, you're talking about a 5-card hand then, where you had You need to have 2 other Draconic Chainlinks, and then you send this, which would cost 1, and then you can send with your 2 floating your remaining 2 daggers, right? In which case it's a 1 for 5 go again. Was your rate for this card?
Am I missing something? So you don't have to pay for the daggers, right? They cost 1 less to activate. No?
So, the daggers themselves cost 1 less to activate. I actually completely missed that part of the card. Okay, my bad. Okay, sorry. I'm going to take away the C and I'll give it. So I'm going to take away the minus and I'll give it a C. I think it's fine.
Yeah. I think I agree. I think that is relevant because this can just be a 2-card 7, but that's not a good use of your kunais. I think unless you've got this crazy 4 or 5 card hand where you can flick them really efficiently and then buy them back, even if you bought one on the back. So I do think this card is a little bit better than it sounds. It does have some flexibility in terms of what it gives you, but it's not. It's definitely not amazing. I think it's maybe a build around B, but mostly it's going to be in the C range if you even want it in your deck.
Yeah, it's like. Once again, this is a card that you want to make sure you have 2 daggers around for.
Yeah.
And
that's hard.
I think a fair number of Syndra decks would be like cycling 1 dagger at a time. So it's like I could see the setup / build around. I don't know if you get your hands on a Blood Runs Deep or something, then this is insane. But on its own, without too many other things going with it, yeah. In the sort of role player role.
Not sure it's worth it.
But agreed. Yeah. Next, we have Blood Drop, which is a 1-cost Draconic Ninja action attack. It comes in for 2 and blocks for 3. And it says this costs 1 less to play for each Draconic Chainlink you control. I have this at a D, Hayden. I think I'd be a little embarrassed if I need to put cards like this in my deck. I think you need better damage than this if you're playing Syndra, is my take. Because most of your cards don't block very well. And you just need to put enough pressure on your opponent, and it's a 0 for 2 go again. When you are resolving its text, like the strength of this card is that it blocks 3, but I don't think that's where you want to be when you're Syndra.
Yeah, I agree. I had this as C minus, I think, but I'm going to be talked down to a D plus here. I'm on board. Next up, we have Bloodline, which is the same text as Blood Drop, except now this costs 2, attacks for 3, and has the same text. This costs 1 less to play for each Draconic Chainlink you control. Again, it's that common. Worse? Bid?
I give this the same grade.
Yeah.
I give the same grade for the same reason. Yeah, I mean, it's weird. It's like, I could be talked into it being like half a grade. I could be talked into it as being a D+. Yeah,
it's bitter, right?
It's probably going to... Yeah, it's like probably trivially easy to make this into a Lava Vein loyalty.
Yeah.
Right? Like you can 1 dagger and then 1 something else, and now this is a Lava Vein loyalty. So maybe not so bad. So yeah, maybe I guess this could be a C-. Honestly, yeah. I'm gonna change this from a D to like a C-.
Yeah, I'm gonna go D+ on drop, C- on line. I'm on board. Yep.
Next, we have Burning Blade Dance. This is a 0-cost Draconic Ninja action attack. Comes in for 3, blocks for 3 as well. If you control 2 or more Draconic Chainlinks, this gets go again, and when this hits a hero, you may have target dagger you control deal 1 damage to them. If damage is dealt this way, the dagger has hit, destroy the dagger.
Wow.
I have this at a B, Hayden. I think this is actually, this is strictly better Lava Vein loyalty. Right?
I was about to say.
2 or more Draconic Chainlinks and this says go again. Yeah. And it gives you a way to flick, which I think is one of the ways Syndra can break that play pattern that we were talking about, with the 1 dagger a turn thing. The more flicks you have, the more times you get to break that, the more times you get to Syndra ability for 2 daggers, and that's just more powerful.
Yeah, did you say this a B?
Yes, I have this at a B.
Same. I echo everything you said. This is just strictly a better Lava Vein loyalty for Syndra and does exactly what you have at a premium, which is, we spoke about Arachne having a premium on those cards that do whatever Arachne you are, you have this impact. Burning Blade Dances, when it comes to flicking and making Draconic Chainlinks and flicking, that is the kind of semi-equivalent, I would say. So yeah, I think this is an easy B. Easy B.
It seems like, I mean, all the heroes have some turns where they sort of do more powerful things, right? And this is the one where when the Syndra resolves this unlimited, you're like, this is, in a sense, one of the power turns that she has. It'll be built around, like, flicking a dagger and getting 2 of them back on 1 turn with Syndra's ability. Because that's when you're obviously extracting most value from a hero.
Yeah, this reminds me of Rupture turns out of Fi a little bit, to an extent.
Yeah.
Yep, cool.
Sure.
Speaking of Fi, we've got next up a reprint coming in only red, of course, the Draconic Ninja attack. 1 cost, attacks for 4, defense for 3. It's Cinderskin Devotion. If you control 2 or more Draconic Chainlinks, this gets go again. It is the Lava Vein loyalty, but it's the 1-up from Uprising.
Yep, costs 1. I give this a C. It's fine. It's good. I would like these in my deck. I'm not gonna chase them. I wouldn't be like, oh, this is an early signal to go into that hero. But not embarrassed to put them in my deck. Pretty happy to have these being the sort of filler cards, if you will.
Yeah, I'm not too worried about having block 3s in my deck, honestly, as Syndra, I think, just based on what I've seen of this format so far. So I think this is just like a C. It's fine, but I think the second and third ones, now you're encroaching on like C minuses. Like if there's a chance that my hand might get bricked because I might not be on, like I might have had to spin my kunai some way, or I'm forced into particular play patterns that I don't want to be, I'm not as excited. So you pointed out before, the Draconic Stars are less important, and I do think this means that Cinderskin Devotion is a little less awkward than it used to be, but also you just have some, I think, naturally more flexible cards that help you do the things you want to do a bit better.
Fair enough. Next, we have Dust Runner Outlaw, yet another reprint from Uprising. This is 1 cost Draconic Ninja attack, comes in for 4, blocks for 2, and just has base go again. So similar to Cinderskin, except this can be your starter for the turn, but it blocks for 1 less. I have this at a C-, just for the same reasons as we spoke about. Syndra is less reliant on having base Draconic starters because she has the kunais. There's certainly going to be some cost structures, like some turns where you want actually a 1-cost starter that's not your kunai, for example. Mm-hmm. But I think on the whole, generally, I would just have this slightly lower than the Cinderskin Devote.
Yeah, I have this at a C to C+. I think, I don't disagree. I do think sometimes if you've built your deck in particular ways, you might not be attacking with a kunai on 1 or 2 turns of the game because you are saving them for particular setups, or you're saving your last one for a particular reason so that you can obviously cycle it back well. And I think sometimes you're just going to be like, well, I have this blue, and I can utilize my resources without the kunai on this turn and pump damage, because some of your cards you don't want to be blocking, right? You don't want to be trading your card for 2 or 3. You want to be trading it for 4 or 5 a lot of the time. So I do think having access to some of these is good. You know, those, like you're talking about the Draconic starters. I think I'd prefer the 0 cost, so I can play in with my kunai still, but I don't think this card's terrible.
I think you're right. I think it can be talked up to a C from a C minus. Just thinking about the power turns of Syndra trying to set up as well, it does feel like there's going to be a fair amount of times where you want to go into your turn with double kunai, but this is one of the ways where if you have a starter that's not your kunai, say you're in a classic play pattern, one of your kunai is in the graveyard, one of it's on the field. If you can start your turn with this and actually just get to 3 Draconic Chainlinks without sending your existing kunai, you can still buy back the one that's in your yard for free, and you go into your following turn with 2 kunais. I could see that just being a part of the play pattern, which allows Syndra to have those more powerful spiky turns that we were talking about.
Yep. Next up, we've got Hot on the Heels. This is a Draconic Ninja attack action at common, costs 0, attacks 3, defends 3, and says if you control 2 or more Draconic Chainlinks, this gets go again, so the Love of Vine loyalty effect, and when this hits a hero, mark him. Well, we talked about mark not being as relevant for Syndra, so exactly how good does that text make this card then?
I put this at a C+. I think the marking part of it can be relevant and is strong, but coming in for 3 when you're a deck that sends as much evasive damage as you do, like a whole bunch of kunais and like flicking and stuff, coming for 3 with an on hit is just kind of whatever, because that's exactly where your opponent's going to put their 3 block anyway, right? A lot of your other damage is in a sense uninteractable, so attaching an on hit to a thing that's not a breakpoint to me is less impactful than if, say, this was in a deck that has a lot of on hits already. Of course, could be conditional on if you're against an opposing Syndra, like in the mirror. Maybe this is like a lot better because they don't want to block as much and don't have that many 3 blocks. But if I'm into like a Arachne or a Fang, I'm kind of like, okay, like how often is this text actually going to be relevant?
Yeah, I agree. C+. I basically echo the same statements when it comes to those base Lava Vein loyalties. And speaking of, Pankaj.
Yep, next card is Lava Vein Loyalty, the card we've been talking about a whole bunch. 0 cost, Draconic Ninja action attack, comes in for 3, blocks for 3. If you control 2 or more Draconic Chainlinks, this gets go again. I just have this in the C to C+ range. You're happy to have this on blocks 3. I think the definition of a role player.
Yeah, I have this at just a C minus, honestly. I think we've just seen multiple C pluses that I think do the thing better. I have this at the Synderskin Devotion sort of ranking, except that I do think when there's a condition like this, I would rather have the 0 cost. That's my view right now. I'm not sure if that's actually true when it comes to Syndra. I think because of the archetypes, they're probably close. So I think all in all, I probably just landed a C, to be honest.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Cool. Next up, we've got Mark with Magma. This is a Draconic Ninja attack action. It's literally the same card we just spoke about with Hot on the Heels, except this one is the 4 attack, 1 cost 1 instead, Pankaj.
This one I like a lot more than Hot on the Heels. I think I gave Hot on the Heels like a C to C+. This one I'm going to firmly just put in the C+ range. The breakpoint is obviously very relevant, and Syndra's the sort of hero that once you mark your opponent, you will get your fealty, because they're going to block every turn. So the mark effectively says, okay, at some point you'll get a fealty, and it's not quite the same as the sort of unconditional fealty in a sense that we talked about at the start of the section, but I mean it does block for 1 more.
Yeah, I aligned. I had this at a C+ as well, CC+ as well. I think I just really need to understand, is 1 cost or 0 cost better structure, just going back to that previous conversation, and I think it's probably going to depend on your cost curve and what you come up with, and I think probably both. There's going to be different types of Syndra that want either of these, but the breakpoint, I think, is what would push this over the top for me.
Last of the Draconic Ninja actions, attack actions, we have Ronin Renegade. Cost 0, comes in for 3, blocks for 2, just has go again. And for this one, I gave it a C grade, and my notes were just sure.
Yeah, this is one...
Just sure, full stop. It's like, all right.
Yeah, this is one that I had a lot higher, and then I've watched a lot of the world premiere and was like, oh yeah, the starters just aren't as important. This one, blocking 2 is not really that relevant, but there's just so many competitions for your good draconic attacks, and I think I went from basically being like, yeah, I'm sure this is like a B- to now being like, yeah, this is a C.
But yeah, in Uprising days, this was, I mean, you see this like pick like 3 or 4 or something, and you're like, whoa, is Fi open?
Yeah.
You see this in Hunted Draft, you're probably just like, like whatever. Like it activates no neurons. You just don't really need this in a Syndra deck.
It's very true.
All right, onto the base ninja cards. So not the Draconic talented ones. These are just base ninja actions. We're gonna start with Art of the Dragon Claw. This is a 1-cost ninja action attack. Comes in for 5, blocks for 3, and it says when this attacks, if it is Draconic, it gets when this hits a hero, destroy all cards in their arsenal.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about 3 of these Art of the Dragons that have the exact same stats. The 1-cost, attack 5, defend 3. They only come in red. I don't know. This one to me is like fine. Is it like the middle one, I guess?
Yeah, this is definitely the middle one. I gave this a B-. I did have it at a C+ at first, but I think after looking through everything, I realized you're probably going to end up in a spot with Syndra where you have a fealty or 2. Like either you've marked them with some other card or you just got a fealty. And you're going to need some fealty payoffs. And this is the one where I'm not like chasing it, but it's fine. Like I would like out of the fealty payoffs that are possible, this is, still for one that I'm like not embarrassed about.
Yeah, that's fair. I think because of where I would draft this in a draft, and I'm not looking for this highly, and I think I'm looking for Dragonfire or even Dragon Power, which we'll talk about. I think for me, I just have this at a C+. I'm a little bit lower on it because of that.
That makes sense. Yeah, I think I was coming at it more from an aspect of, I imagine the other ones that we were talking about, the 1-for-7s basically, are going to be pretty highly picked. And so, you're not too sad if this is your fealty payoff. But yeah, I think you're right. It's probably more in the C+.
I might be sad if that's my fealty payoff, honestly. But let's talk about Art of Dragonfire, because that is the exact same stats, except this one says when this attacks, if it's Draconic, deal 2 damage to any target. And this one I have solidly at a B-.
Oh, I have it as an A.
Oh,
I'm quite high on this. I think particularly like Syndra compared to Fang doesn't have too many like fealty, like uses for fealty. So you're just gonna have like 1 or 2 probably over the course of the game. And I think this is very much, I think getting this off is almost a win condition. Like actually not even almost. I think it straight up is like could be in the win condition territory. Like it's Chase the Tail, right? If you get to pull off a Chase the Tail in like MST draft or something, MST limited, this is exactly what that is. This is a 1-for-7. And that 2 damage on your target as well is uninteractable, and there's some value in that as well, that the opponent just can't block it. So I could see myself like getting this early and then intentionally looking for more ways to mark or generate fealty, and then sort of build towards this being my game plan.
Yeah, you're right. This is actually just an A. Like its floor is a 1-for-5 as well, which is just massive. So even if you are late in the game, you draw this, or even if you draw this early and you can't arsenal it or whatever and can't set it up, you just play it. It's a pounding gale. Like it's just really good. Yeah, I'm on board.
And then when you do pull it off, you're, I don't know, like it's hard to imagine games where you lose. As long as you, I guess, use the rest of your resources effectively as well.
Yeah, you're cheering. You know what? I think I'm in line with you. I think Art of the Dragon Claw is a B-. This is an A, and then Art of Dragon Scale?
Yeah. Art of Dragon Scale, same cost structure. It's cost 1, comes in for 5, blocks for 3, ninja action attack. It says when this attacks, if it is Draconic, it gets when this hits a hero, put a -1 counter on an equipment they control. Then if it has 0 defense, destroy it. I had this as a C. This is the worst of the fealty payoffs in my opinion. This is the one that I'll be sad if this is my fealty payoff.
Yeah, that's fair. I think C+. It's still a pounding gale, so it's damage, and damage is good in this format. Like think about Uprising, and the equivalent card was the generic 1-for-5, right? Like I think that card was good.
Critical Strike is solid. It's solid. Which is C isn't a disrespect of a grade for sure. It's just like it's just solid. But I'm not like, oh yeah, I picked up Art of Dragon Scale as I would be if I got Art of Dragon Fire.
Very true. Very true.
I think I do want to point out there is one piece of equipment in particular which is very, very impactful in this format. We'll get to it when we get to the equipment section. But deadly digits, I think that's the one where if you get to send this, if you get to turn this on and send it, and they haven't used the deadly digits, you are forcing them to block, because that equipment is so relevant and so very, very powerful. I had that in my notes. I was like, okay, if they haven't used the deadly digits and you got your fealty and you pull this off, sure, that's when it goes above a C. But most of the time, this is just, sure, it's just a C.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to take their wish.com stash of Sandakai. Can't remember what it's called.
I forgot what it's called.
Yeah, we'll get to it.
But they can only play Draconic cards this turn, but again, a resource, that one.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Next up, we've got Dragon Power. This is another rare ninja action attack. Defends for 3, attacks for 4. This is a cycle, this one. It costs 1 and says when this attacks, if it's Draconic, it gets +3. So again, in your warehouse of a Chase the Tail like it red, but I mean, honestly, even the yellow and blue versions of this card are good, I think. So I had this at an A- at red, and then I still have the blues and the yellows in like the B range.
I only graded a red, to be honest, and I think I'm in the A-, could be B+ range for 2 reasons. One, compared to Out of the Dragonfire, this damage is more interactable with.
Yep.
They can go ahead and block. And the other is that the floor is a 1 for 4 rather than a 1 for 5 when you can't make it Draconic. So for both those reasons, I'm slightly lower on this compared to the other one. But I think this is in a similar spot, still potentially A- range, because you pull off a 1 for 7 in limited. As long as most of the other turns are fine, you're probably winning that game.
Yeah, agree.
It feels game winning in this. Yeah. All right, next card we have Silver Talons. Cost 0, ninja action attack, comes in for 4, blocks for 3. When this attacks a hero, if it is Draconic, you may have target dagger you control deal 1 damage to them. If damage is dealt this way, the dagger is hit, destroy the dagger.
All right, this card. So we're talking about payoffs, right? And obviously the 1 for 5s, they're great, they're premium. This is another rare. I think, if you've got 2 or 3 of these Draconic, they become Draconic payoffs. Maybe 2 to 3, you cast 1 or 2 during a game. I mean, Silver Talons is one I'm definitely happy to have, I think, even though it doesn't have go again. I still think this card is good.
Yeah, I do like this card, and maybe so I gave it a C+, but maybe I should be in the B- range, because the payoff is good. Just getting the extra damage from a dagger, and very importantly, putting an extra dagger in your yard so your Syndra can get back 2 daggers instead of just 1. All that is pretty great, and the floor is good. I mean, it's a wounding blow floor, which isn't something to complain about. Yeah.
I have this B- for that reason as well, and specifically for all the things you just said is why I like it. But I only like it at red, to be clear. Next up,
yeah, for sure.
We've got first Tenant, Strike Fist. Back to the Tenants. This is a ninja action attack at common. It is a cycle, but we're looking at the red. Attacks for 3, defense for 2, cost 0. It says when this attacks your next Draconic attack, this combat chain gets +1 attack. Go again. So it's a head jab that gives +1. That seems pretty good.
Yeah, it's a 0 for 4. Go again. And here's where I think we need to talk about what we touched on at the start of the Syndra section, which is what is the penalty you give to these cards that are non-Draconic when it comes to your play pattern, your cost structure really wanting you to activate Syndra every turn. So on the surface, 0 for 4 go again, incredible, right? Just very, very good rate. It's Scar for Scar, and Scar for Scar is good when you turn it on. But how much of a tax does a non-Draconic part impose? And that's probably where the rest of the deck also comes into play, right? We spoke about Lava Vein, Loyalty, and all those cards that want to be the second Draconic Chainlink. This is a sort of card that can potentially affect the density. Despite you having kunais, you're going to draw all reds or something, and if this is your starter, all those cards are turned off as well. I'm still fairly high on this card. I give this a C+, but I do want to point out that there is a limit to how many of these kind of cards you can have.
Yeah, no, I massively agree. I actually think, I just want to go back to Ronin Renegade for a second, and that's why I think I was still a little bit higher on Ronin Renegade. Like, honestly, I actually think that I might be like a C+ on that card, and honestly, my first... Depending on what my deck plays out, that card might be rated more like a B-, knowing that I need it, because there's going to be... Okay, look at it this way, right? If you just had a bunch of 0-4s and leg taps and things like that in your deck, you don't need to attack with your kunais, right? Because the return rate on a Kodachi, right, is not huge, but it's super flexible. It's Draconic attack. It has other implications for what your cards do, and you just realistically can't fill your deck with enough Renegades and Draconic Chain starters. So it is important that your kunais have their place. So I do think that basically that's kind of what I think, is that there's a real balance to the Draconic Chain starters, to just the Draconic cards and what they do, and then also cards like this.
So you'd build a deck that's just oops, all Scar for Scar is what I'm hearing.
I mean, why not?
Which, I mean, honestly, yeah, most people would. For Go Again, the whole deck is just a good deck in Limited.
Yeah, like Fi. Like, I think, honestly, people will be like, I think people will try it, but can I play Fi? And I think the answer is no, you can't. Like, there's just not the cards to support that, unless randomly you're the only Cinder at the table, in which case you might have just had a better broken deck anyway. So I'm echoing what you're saying, but I do think there's a balance to what your deck needs to look like when it comes to those three elements, which is Draconic Train starters, Draconic cards in general, and then these Ninja attack, which have just good value payoffs. Because, to your point, you might get a hand where you draw this and you get things like the Cinderclaw, right? The 1-cost Cinderclaw, and you not draw a blue, and all of a sudden you're like, oh man, this hand is pretty miserable.
I think the main point of difference between these cards and the Draconic ones is that these ones have very high diminishing returns.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is similar to like when we spoke about the Trap, where it's like the first copy is very, very different from like the third or fourth copy. I think once you're reaching the points where you need to put more of these Ninja attacks, like non-Draconic ones, like the third, fourth of this, and now you're approaching, you're going to get bricked on this card territory. Whereas the Draconic Ninja attacks, you can kind of just put almost as many of them as possible.
Yes.
Like, you can have a totally functional deck when you're missing Fire Tenets, but you can't have a totally functional deck when you're missing those Draconic Ninja attacks.
Yeah,
would be the way I'd put it.
Yeah, and you could be like, well, the flaws are, the flaw on the red one is a head jab, and yeah, that's true, but it's also the fact of what it does. The opportunity cost of it not being Draconic is what it does to your deck. That is the challenge. So yeah, I'm a C+, just to clarify, but I thought it was a good chance to have that conversation.
Yeah, the flaw is a head jab, but yeah, to your point of the opportunity cost, you are losing out the -1 resource activation cost for Syndra's ability because it's not Draconic.
Yep.
Next, we're going to talk about Grow Claws. It's a 1-cost ninja action attack, comes in for 4, blocks for 2, and it says, if a Draconic attack was a last attack this combat chain, this gets +1, and it has Go Again. It's effectively like Fire Tenet Strike First, except it's reverse. It wants a Draconic action to happen before it, and then you sort of get a critical strike with Go Again if you fulfill that clause.
I mean, I like this card a bit more because its base is a leg tap, and it just interacts well with kunais or good Draconic, cards for big chain links to be a 1 for 5 with Go Again. So, I mean, I have this card at like a really sound C+, and I honestly maybe could be talked up to a B-, but I think it's a C+. Again, it's Draconic penalty, non-Draconic penalty.
Yeah, I give this a C as well. The rate is good. Like, the 1 for 5 Go Again is great. I mean, it's Scar for a Scar rate. It's kind of the exact same conversation as earlier. Maybe I'm being a bit too harsh on the non-Draconic penalty. But I do think there's a limit to how many of these sort of cards you can get, and that's kind of why I'm leaving it in the C-ish rate. Because, yeah, if you have a deck of Grow Claws and Fire Tenet Strike First, your deck isn't super good, I think.
Yeah. You do have to be careful. I think it's a good shout. Right. Next up, we have Grow Wings. This is a Draconic, a Ninja attack action, 0 cost, attacks 3, defends for 3. We're looking at the red one. If a Draconic attack was the last attack this combat chain, this gets Go Again. So it's effectively a Lava Vein loyalty, I guess. But not Draconic.
It's a worse Draconic, yes. Because it's not Draconic. Yeah, exactly. It's just totally not Draconic. It doesn't add to Draconic Chain Link. It doesn't. Yeah, I give this a C-, and I could be talked into a D+, I think.
Yeah, I'm D+.
D+. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I could totally see that.
It blocks 3.
Why? Like,
maybe the blue C-. I don't know. I'm not happy about having this card in my deck. I'll be honest with you.
This is one of those, I was scraping the bottom of the barrel. This was the last playable pick in the pack, so I had to take it.
Yeah.
Sort of category. We saw like 3 other Lava Vein loyalties, like effectively, and all of them you just rather have than this.
Yeah, agree. Cool.
Next, we have Tag the Target. 0 cost ninja attack, comes in for 3, blocks for 2. has Go Again and says, when this hits a hero, mark them.
Mark 'em. I mean, it's a head jab with
Yep.
upside, right? But again, it's not Draconic. But we spoke about that mark being relevant because, especially you could start with this, and then you're threatening to gain that fealty. I mean, one of the problems I guess you might want to point out is that this doesn't have a breakpoint, right? I know we've spoken about that before, which is the challenge.
Yeah, I give this a C+. I think it's a similar conversation to how many of these. And I think the first copy of this is like a C+, because you do want some ways to generate fealty in Syndra, as long as you, I guess, have the payoff for it, which I imagine you'll be able to get at least like 1 or 2 copies of the fealty payoffs. So this is sort of like your couple of copies to like generate the fealties, but you definitely don't want too many of this because, as we spoke about, non-draconic. But also not a breakpoint, and your deck doesn't send a lot of on-hits, so I don't know how often you're going to get this, and that's why it's not very highly rated.
Yeah, I'm at a C, but I could, maybe the first one's a C+, for that effect. So, kind of similar thought process there. Next up, we've got Trap and Release. This is, this is the same thing, except it's the leg tap version. So 4 attack, cost 1, but the same effect.
This one I have higher. And I might have just been, how do I say it? Primed by what grade I gave to Tag the Target, because I gave Tag the Target C+, and I think Trap and Release is definitely better. So I was like, oh, I guess this is a B- then. It could still just be in the C+ range, but I think the breakpoint adds a massive difference, right? And again, this is maybe it's more of a build around grade, because it does matter whether you have like the Art of the Dragon Fire or the Dragon Claw. Like if you have those kind of cards, then this is the fealty generator I want way more than Tag the Target because of the breakpoint. Yeah,
I mean, I'm on the same vein, except that I'm a C+ because I'm probably a C on Tag the Target, but for the same reasons. I think that yellow and blues are like unplayable though. Just FYI.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, definitely not. Not Draconic block 2s. Yeah, get out of here.
Yeah.
The reds.
We're going to the Draconic Warrior next, our Royal Draconic Warrior hero, which is Fang. We're going to be speaking about now. Fang, if you have for some reason read Fang, you probably should before you get to the pre-release this weekend, but it is 20 life, 4 intellect. Whenever you hit a marked hero, create a fealty token, and if you control 3 or more fealty tokens, dagger attacks cost 1 less to activate. What's your dagger, you ask? Well, that is the Obsidian Fire Vein. It is a Draconic Warrior weapon dagger one-hander. Once per turn action, 1 resource attack. If you've played a Draconic card, this chain link, this gets +1 attack and Go Again, has base 1 attack. Very important to note that it says this chain link. So we're talking about attack reactions in instance in order to give Obsidian Fire Vein the +1 and Go Again.
That was definitely something that was missed the first time this card was spoiled. I think a lot of people were like, oh, so I can just start my turn like an Uprising, and then now I send my daggers and they have Go Again. It's like, no. This chain link. Also important to note that fealties are instant speed activations. So you could pop a fealty, like on this chain link, pop a fealty, and then you play a different reaction, like a non-draconic reaction, but it would be made draconic.
Yes.
From the activation of the fealty token.
Yes, including you can, you definitely can. Yeah, it's very cool. Anything else to say about Fang? Fang's really interesting. I think as we talk about this, that kind of, if you can turn on Fang's ability, you can get to that 3 fealty. It is pretty insane, but also it's an opportunity cost of using your fealty, right? Like, have you built a deck that is all just draconic reactions? Because there's also just warrior attack reactions, and some of them are pretty good. So there's this real balance of how you use your fealties versus how you potentially stack them. Because once you turn them on, sometimes it's actually easier to maintain and get that even 4th fealty. So it's quite an interesting dynamic, I think, with Fang, especially in a format that's quite quick.
Yeah, I could totally see the best Fang decks not really caring about that part of the text, about your dagger attacks are free text, but really more just playing good raid cards. And if you think about the Obsidian Fire Vein raid, when you get to turn on its effect, it's actually a very, very strong weapon. It's Zephyr Needle with no downside.
100%.
If you manage to actually fulfill its clause in a way that's also on raid, right?
Yeah.
If you play like the 0 for 3 instant or something, okay, now you just send a 1 card 5 Go Again.
Yeah.
That's really, really good. So you don't even super need the 3 fealty token thing. So the way I'm evaluating Fang cards right now, it's less, you're really trying to get to the 3 fealty tokens, but it's more just like, does it enable you to do the thing, which is swing both your daggers every turn? Because I think if you manage to do that, you're just going to have really good numbers.
Okay, so we might have different grades on some cards because I think I'm a little bit different in how I want to potentially build towards Fang and play it. So it'd be interesting to hear some of the card grades. I don't fully disagree with where you're at, but I do think I have a slight. I've watched some games. I've seen how powerful that effect can be. So I'm kind of probably somewhere in the middle, maybe. But we'll see as we get into some card gradings.
Sounds good. So let's start with the first one, which is Affirm Loyalty. 0-cost Draconic Warrior attack reaction, blocks for 2, and it says target dagger attack gets +2. If you control 2 or more Draconic chain links, create a fealty token. I gave this a B. You need these. You just need a whole bunch of these in your Fang deck. You want Draconic attack reactions. The extra clause of the fealty thing, that's just a nice cherry on top. I think the base is just exactly what I was just talking about of what you want to do. It turns on your Obsidian Firevein. It lets you do the Fang thing on the turn. If you can get to the fealty as well, that's a bonus, and that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm at a B plus. Maybe it's my little bias towards fealty. Although I will say, I think the amount of times you're going to play this and get the fealty is actually going to be more like 1 in 5, maybe 20, 30%. I think the majority of the time, this is just as safe as houses. +2, trigger the effect on Obsidian, get the go again, and you maybe attacking with another dagger, but probably more likely doing something else. So I think it comes down to how often you're double daggering, and how often then are you double daggering and having the double Draconic react sort of thing. So yeah, I do think this card is good though.
Which is kind of why I was leaning towards fealties. Like, you do want to generate some fealty, but I think you might be better off many times actually just using those fealties to get that second Draconic react to turn on your Firevein, rather than really trying to hit the 3 fealty threshold. But I am with you. When you hit the 3 fealty threshold, it's insane because you are effectively up 1 intellect, right? You're actually just a 5 intellect hero when that happens.
Yeah, I think it's about not forcing. I think it's about not forcing. It's about finding what your deck is telling you, what it's providing you, and what your opportunities are, and knowing your deck and weighing them up. I think that's the reality of it.
Yeah, not forcing, not like tunneling on it. I think is potentially another way to put it as well. Probably just because we were sort of relating to Fi like a little bit earlier. This analogy came to me. Affirm Loyalty to me feels almost like the Ronin Renegade type card in Uprising Draft, in that if I see this and say it's like pick 4 or something, I will pick 4 or pick 5. I might read this as a signal that Fang is open.
Yeah, I'm on board. It's super flexible.
Is something you release it?
No, I think
right. If you see this card and it's like pick 4, you're like, wait, people not drafting Fang.
Yeah.
Like, this card, you need this in Fang, right?
Yeah, agree. All right, let's move on. We've got Endeared Devotion. This is another Draconic Warrior attack reaction at rare. Again, these are Draconic, so red only. Costs 1, says target dagger attack. It's +3 attack this turn. If you control 2 or more Draconic chain links, create a fealty. So it's the same thing, except this one costs 1 and pumps for an extra damage.
I give this the exact same grade. I give this a B. I think it's in the almost exact same spot.
Yep.
Where you just want the Draconic reacts, and if I see this somewhere in the middle of the pack, I'm going to take it as a signal.
Yeah. One thing I do want to point out is just that you create the fealty token as long as you have the 2 or more Draconic chain links. You don't have to hit. I think some people might miss that and think you have to hit. You do not have to hit. So, I'm the same grade here. I'm at a B+. My note was, give me all these. I'm happy with them.
Yeah, your deck can just be full of these, and you'd be like quite happy. And some blues, and you'll be like, you're just doing the Fang thing turn after turn, and those are good numbers. Mm-hmm. Zephyr Needle turns out kind of a good weapon if it doesn't break. Next, we have Fire and Brimstone. This is like the equivalent of the Syndra card, the Wrath something. Fire and Brimstone. It's cost 2, Draconic Warrior attack reaction that blocks for 3. This is legendary, so I guess it doesn't matter for limited. And it says, this costs 1 less to play for each Draconic chainlink you control. And daggers you control get +1, and you may attack with each of them an additional time this turn.
This is an attack reaction. I think it's really important to point out, because my first thought was, oh wow, this is a great setup for, when you have the 3 fealty of, I play this and then I swing with my daggers, X amount of times. But you still have to play the instance in between to give them the go again. And this is a reaction. It's not just a straight up action. So yeah, I don't know. What do you think of this card?
I give this a D.
Oh,
I don't think you're getting the ceiling from this card in limited. I think most of the time you're gonna be sending a 5 in and then playing this for 1, and then you send your other 5 in, and that's it. So you kind of got a 1-for-2 react.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, you know what? Actually, now that I've put it that way, I think I'm way too low on this card. I think I was just focused on more stuff is gonna be out. Actually, even a 1-for-2 react is probably still fine. Sorry, I'm gonna up it. I'm gonna up it to like a C plus, maybe a B minus. Actually, it should be a B minus. It should definitely be B minus.
Yeah.
I was completely wrong the first time. But I will say you aren't reaching the ceiling. You are not going to be attacking with your daggers additional times.
Yeah.
I think most of the time this is just a 1-for-2 Draconic Warrior attack reaction on blocks for 3, which you're still fine with.
Yeah, I think this is probably most of the time as a 1 cost plus 3. And it's a Draconic Warrior attack reaction. So I actually have this at a B, but when I first read this, I was like, this card's insane. It's an A, but it's not. It's mostly just going to do an impersonation of being a fairly solid attack reaction, I think.
Yeah. Well, when you say 1-for-3, so you're gonna you think you will turn on the clause where you get to attack again with a dagger. So you go dagger and then another dagger, and you would give that one go again as well to be able to attack with
No, I'm just playing this on the first dagger.
a third time. So it would be +2, right?
So you get...
You play this on yeah.
sorry, I guess I'm counting the... Yeah, it's +2. You're right. I guess I'm counting the trigger off the 5-in. But we shouldn't. That's just built into wanting to use it. So, yeah. Very true.
So 1-for-2, which is... But Draconic Warrior attack reaction, so yeah, it does put in the same level of like a firm loyalty and endear devotion in a sense. Probably just a slightly less rate, so
yeah.
A B minus, I think is.
But there's gonna be some times where maybe you do get the double dagger out of it or something.
The extra
potentially.
swing.
Yeah.
All
right, next up we've got Blistering Blade. Now we're into the commons. This is a Draconic Warrior attack reaction. At common, like I said, cost 0, defense for 2, and says target dagger attack gets +2. If you control 2 or more Draconic Chain Links instead, it gets +3. So again, like a firm loyalty, I think most of the time this is going to be solid +2. But if you have enough of these and you're playing off some good, 4 card hands, you will be using this on second Draconic Chain Link and then following up to end the turn with something like a 1 cost afterwards. So 4 card hand, a blue, 2 of these kind of effects, and a 1 cost attack or a 0 cost attack, like a wounding blow. You are going to be doing those sorts of things for a reasonable 4 card turn.
Yeah, I give this a B. It's just it's very much in the affirm loyalty and dear devotion sort of thing. It's probably slightly worse because I think in general, if you can turn on the condition of the second Draconic Chain Link, you'd probably want the free fealty out of it rather than a +1 most of the time. So it's probably slightly worse, but not worse enough for me to even knock it down a grade to a B minus. I think I'm still very, very happy to pick up this card.
Yeah, so I have this as a C plus. I think I just have fealty that high, and I do think you want these cards. You actively want them. I think they're going to be a big part of your deck. But like the rate of return on this of a 2 damage attack, you can factor in the go again, the +1 on your dagger. But at the end of the day, it is a Zephyr, which it is good, right? But at the cost of having to play a 0 for 2, a 1 card 2. So I do think that I am tempering some of... I don't want to just be all attack reactions. I also want some other good damage out of my deck, I think. So it's some and some, I think. So yes, I want these. They're going to be important cards for me, but I think for me that means it's a C plus as opposed to a B range like some of the more powerful reactions.
I think that makes lots of sense. Although I do want to point out that when you do have a lot of these attack reactions, like you have like maybe way more than you think you need, you do get to turn on the second 5-in as well, which is I think going to be that's the sort of stronger Fang turns. Where you could go 5-in, give it go again, 5-in, give it go again, and then end off on like a 1-4 or something, or 0 cost.
Yeah.
Chain ender.
Yeah, that is true, right? So if we use that, say you have 2 of these, a blue, and then like a 1 for 4, right? So you're coming in for what, 8? That's 12. That's 4 card 12. Like that's not insane.
That's a fair point. Yeah.
I think I want to temper just what Fang looks like, honestly. That's why I think the fealty, like that's why I feel like I want to lean into it, because I think that's when Fang is truly at its most powerful. And I'm a little bit underwhelmed by an average Fang deck. I think a good Fang deck is really good, but I think an average Fang deck, honestly, it's giving me kind of it's giving me new vibes from MST. An average new deck can feel pretty poor, I think, sometimes.
Yeah, I could see that a lot. I think there's maybe some additional value in he's very difficult to block.
That's very true.
it's just because you just don't know how big the 5 is gonna get. Yeah, but yeah, I'm with you. It does feel like you do need some level of like fealty generation. Like maybe you do want to turn on the third fealty, and maybe I'm too low on it.
We'll find out.
Cool. Next we have Brothers of Flame, 1-cost Draconic Warrior attack reaction that blocks for 3. And it says, play this only if you control 2 or more Draconic chain links. Target dagger attack gets +4.
Yeah, so this card's quite interesting, right? Because this could be, we just spoke about that 4-card hand. I mean, this could be your, this could be your 1 for 4, like we just spoke about, and just do the damage. When you do turn this on maybe even like a different looking 4 or 5-card hand, this can be very strong. You talked about it's hard to block the Obsidian Fire Veins and what the damage they might end up doing is. So I do think that I want like the first one of this in my deck. I'm really keen to have.
I agree. This is kind of like the payoffs. I think the other cards that we were talking about, like the Blistering Blades and the End Your Devotions and all that, those are the role players that allow you to... Yeah, they're enablers. They get to do your thing. You need a critical mass of them. But once you get to that critical mass and you have things like these to pump your second 5 in, this is where you maybe break the sort of 4-card 12 that we were talking about earlier.
Yep. Or you just kill your opponent.
I give this... Yeah. I give this a C+. The condition isn't easy, the second Draconic Chainlink. But, I mean, the floor being a block 3 as well made it to be like... I think, to your point, you do want like 1 to 2 copies of this, and your strong Fang decks will have this. But to me, it's not quite in the B range.
Yeah, I'm on the same boat on the whole. I have it at a C+. Next up, we've got Dynastic Dedication. Oh my goodness. This is a Draconic Warrior attack reaction. It costs 2, defends for 2. It's a common and says this costs 1 less to play for each Draconic chain link you control. Target dagger gets +3. I kind of equate this a little bit to the previous card in a way of like most of the time, I'm going to be wanting to play this if I'm playing it on my second dagger, and then it's a 1 cost for 3 with stipulation. To me, this feels like I've not picked up any of the good attack reactions like Blistering Blade, any of the good enablers, so I have to play this card.
Yeah, it's a worse Endear Devotion is my notes for it, but because you don't get if it's on your second one, I guess you get to play it for free, which is nice, but you don't get the fealty that Endear Devotion would have given you if you get to play it on the second chain link. I'd still say it's still... I'm still like on the B- range, I think. I still think you want a critical mass of these in your Fang deck for it to be a good deck.
Yeah, I'm at C. I think this is just like... This to me is like a solid stealth card. Like, I don't know. You do need them, but I think... It's funny because Fang can't... So if you have some shitty stealth cards or you're a little bit short on stealth cards, you can still play Arachne. If you are short on attack reactions or instant Draconic reactions, you just can't play Fang, right? So it feels weird. The weighting is more on these cards as if you need them. But I think overall the card, if I'm comparing it to the other ones, for me, this is like a C.
And that's exactly why I have all of these like Draconic reactions in the sort of B-ish range.
Makes sense.
Because, to your point, it's like... you just don't have a functional deck at all when you don't have these cards. And for that reason, I think they'll be picked pretty highly in draft, if like by any sort of Fang player. And I guess maybe the grading here, maybe I should specify a little more. It's not exactly their power level, but it's in a sense the pick priority. Yeah. And I do think you need these. And it's not necessarily because of the power level, but just because your deck doesn't function unless you have these.
No, I agree. I think for me, it's where I land on it is probably that I expect Fang will often be the 2-person hero in drafts, I think, just given it'll be a majority of the time be a 3-3-2 split. So, yeah.
That makes sense. Next, we have Imperial Intent. This is honestly the same as Dynastic Dedication, except just the cost 1 less. It costs 1, Draconic Warrior attack reaction, blocks for 2. It says this costs 1 less to play for each Draconic chain link you control. Target dagger attack gets +2. So it's worth Affirm Loyalty, basically. You just swing a 5 in, this immediately costs 0 and gives a +2, but it doesn't have the rider of if this is your second Draconic chain link, you get a fealty out of it.
Yeah.
I have this in a C+, B- range, to be honest.
Yeah. I just have this at a C, like dedication. It's exactly, it's the It's the down one version, and I think these are role players for me. So, yep, makes sense. All right, next up, we've got Scalding Iron. This is another Draconic Warrior attack reaction at common, defense 2, cost 0, and says target dagger gets plus X, where X is the number of Draconic chain links you control.
I gave this a C. It's interesting. I feel like, yeah, I'm high on these cards than you are for sure. I think, yeah, like the Imperial Inter and Dynastic Dedication, like it was, I think my grades were like half a grade higher than yours most of the time, just because I think I'm putting a lot of weight on you getting to do your thing as Fang.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing you have this lower than me, because I have this at a C. I'm just like, it's a Zerf of 1 most of the time, but I still struggle to put it in the D range, just because it still lets my deck function to some extent. It still lets me do the play patterns I want to.
So this is the problem I have, right, is that if I'm playing all these cards and doing the thing, like attacking with my daggers, and my damage turn after turn is on average down to what my opponent's doing, I'm going to lose those games. Like this is why I think I'm grading them where I have. So this is a C minus, for instance, and I think my grades would. So for instance, if I think I need 10 to 12 Draconic instant speed cards to trigger my daggers, just to say, or maybe even half my deck. I don't know what the right number is right now, honestly, but if that's what I think is correct, and this one is like, my 12th to 15th, yeah, fine. Like I'm perfect, that's the difference between my deck being functional and not, fine. But if this is like my 9th or 10th one, like I'm going to start to get pretty depressed about my deck, honestly.
Yeah, this is the worst of the ones for sure. But to your point about if this is the 9th, yes, I would be sad too, but I'd rather this be the 9th of this card than some other card. But I'd rather have this be the 9th than only have 8.
You should be playing Fang then, I think, sense. Though, is the thing.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe you read your seat wrong or something, but it's still in the category of, okay, I at least get to participate in the game. I don't know. But yeah, I'm not thrilled about this card for sure.
No. All right. Next up, we have Searing Gaze. Searing Gaze is a Draconic Warrior attack reaction. Cost 0, defense 2. Again, common. Says target dagger gets +2 attack. If you control 2 or more Draconic chain links, it gets, when this hits a hero, mark them. Okay, I'm a bit more interested in this one.
It's slightly worse Affirm Loyalty. Affirm Loyalty gives you the fealty immediately on this one, on the second Draconic chain link. This one adds on hit mark them, which means you have to hit them again to get your fealty token. I have this at a C+. It's slightly worse than Affirm Loyalty, but it's still good and it still checks the boxes that you want.
Yeah, so I actually, you say it's worse Affirm Loyalty because of the fealty thing. There are cards that do care about the hero being marked that this hero can play, which we're going to get to some of them soon. So I do think that is relevant. Like, you do want to find ways to mark them, but that's not the only way to do it. So wait, what is Fang's secondary text? When you hit a mark to your credit, yeah, that's continuously marked. So I do think you can get sort of 2 birds, 1 stone, so to speak. You hit them, you mark them, and then the next time you come up with something that cares about marked, and then you can try and force through the fealty token. I have this at a C. I'd probably a C+ on this one, actually, honestly.
So the other reason why I said slightly worse Affirm Loyalty is because you're putting the generation of the fealty behind 2 conditions now, whereas Affirm Loyalty is just second link, do the thing. This one is second link, this gets when this hits. So this might be the second link, but your 5-8 still has to hit on this chain link that you play this card, and then you have to go hit them again because now they're marked. So because it's like an additional 2 conditions, that's sort of why I put slightly worse Affirm Loyalty.
I agree.
But yeah, you could have cards. You could have cards that have payoffs for them being marked, in which case then maybe this is the better one.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's just worth pointing that out, that not being marked is going to be sometimes relevant for Fang as well as just the fealty. But yeah, I do agree. It's definitely worse for Affirm Loyalty.
Next, we have Sisters of Fire. Costs 0, Draconic Warrior attack reaction, blocks for 3. Says, play this only if you control 2 or more Draconic chain links. Target dagger attack gets +3. I give this a C. The condition isn't easy, as we spoke about when we went over Brothers of Flame. But it's in a similar category of this isn't the enabler, but it is a little bit of the payoff, and the floor is totally functional as a block 3.
Yeah, my question on these cards is just, what are they competing space-wise for? Is it competing with an enabler? Probably not, because you need those enablers. Is it competing with payoff? Maybe. And is this sometimes going to be like, it's neither a good payoff or it's neither a good enabler? And that's kind of my concern with some of these. But in saying that, I still think this card is perfectly playable. I just have this at a C-. I just don't love them, and I don't want too many of them.
It's so strange because it's sort of both an enabler and a payoff. But
it's also neither at the same time.
It's a payoff. Yeah, it's like a payoff in that you needed the first link, and then you get to resolve this, and it's an enabler because then you have your second react on the second link to go ahead and do your actual chain enter, right? Which could be like a for the Drakai or something like that. So yeah, it's in a weird spot, and yeah, you don't know where it's competing with. So yeah, so I think I'm in a we're both in the C range. Yeah. I guess you said C minus.
Yeah, I did. Next up, Sizzling Steel. This is a Draconic Warrior attack reaction at common again. Cost 1, says defense 2, says target dagger attack. It's +3 if you control 2 or more Draconic chain links instead. This gets +4. I tell you what, this one I'm a lot more interested in, of almost being both, right, as an enabler, and it is also somewhat of a payoff on the second chain link. So I think I'm pretty high on this card. I might be like the B- range on this one.
Yeah, I'm in a C+ to B- range for this one. I like that the floor is that it's just like Endear Devotion on the first link, right? But then the ceiling of it, where you get to actually get the payoff of the second one, it's +4 instead of like a fealty that Endear Devotion gets. But it's just, it's solid. You want these in your deck. And in my notes, I kind of just wrote Deja Vu for this one. It's funny how so many of these cards are actually just the same, and it's just a different payoff for the second link and something like that.
Yeah,
So.
I was a C+ on Blistering, so I'll stay a C+ on Sizzling, I guess. Yeah, agree. Next up, we've got Stabbing Pain. 1 cost Draconic Warrior attack reaction, defense 2, target dagger attack gets +3. If you control 2 or more Draconic chain links, it gets when this hits a hero, mark them. Again, Deja Vu, right?
Yep. This is just the 1-upped version of Searing Gaze. Yep. Costs 1 more and same thing as that one in the C+ B-.
Yep, I'm at a C.
C, okay.
Yeah, that's where I was at for Searing Gaze, so I'm gonna stay the same.
Okay.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Cool. Well, that's all the Draconic Warrior cards. We're now going to move through into just the Warrior cards, and do you want to kick us off, Pankaj?
Yeah, sure. Also, just real quick, I'm thinking about all the Draconic Warrior cards. I'm just imagining like casting that, and I was like, oh man, all of them are just like slightly different from each other. I'm gonna need to. Yeah, I'm gonna need to be like, wait, is this the one that on hit marks? Is this the one that creates a fealty? Or is this the one that gets +1? That'll be fun. That'll be fun. Get a bunch of reps on that. All right, on to the non-talented Warrior cards. We're gonna start with Diced, which is a 0-cost Warrior attack reaction that blocks for 2. And it says, target dagger attack gets +1. Your next dagger attack this turn gets +3. I gave this a D, Hayden. This is a conditional 0 for 4 that blocks for 2. I'm not a fan.
Yeah, so I think this is where we might start discussing the use of fealty tokens, right? So obviously a fealty token now turns this into a 0 for 4 Draconic attack reaction, which is a lot different, right? But it comes at the cost of your fealty. So I think I have this card at a C+, but I think it comes down to how you want to use your fealties, right? Because I mean, this card can be the other thing as well is that I think there is a space to play some number of these, just for the simple fact that you can double react on the first one, or play an instant, a Draconic instant plus this to trigger the 0/4, but then you're guaranteed having to attack with double daggers to get through it, so it's very restrictive. So yeah, I have this at a C.
The other thing about it is that, like, not only do you like forced to use your to Draconic or whatever, it blocks 2, which is my problem.
That's a good point.
So like I think, and we'll get to this as we cover some of the later cards, I think they have given Warriors more 0 for 4s that block 3. That I'm like, why would I play this one when they are just like better ones? And if you have nothing more to say on this, we can actually move on to the next one, which is 0 for 4 that blocks 3.
Go for it.
Cool. So next card is Twist and Turn. Cost 0, Warrior action, blocks for 3. Your next dagger attack this turn gets +4, and when this hits, you may attack with it an additional time this turn, and has go again. I don't care about the on-hit part of it. I just care that it's a 0 for 4 on a block 3. It's scar for a scar that blocks. Yeah.
It's an action, right? So it's not playing in your warehouse of your fealty reaction kind of shenanigans, but to your point, it's just a 0 for 4 that it's a front pump, right? And the win hits, attack additional time, whatever, but yeah, front pump. I have this at C+, B- maybe even.
I give this a B. I like the fact that it blocks 3 as well, like compared to like the previous one, like compared to Diced, like the fact that it actually just blocks 3, and also it doesn't force you into swinging a second dagger.
Yeah.
You could totally have play lines where you start with this, do your first dagger, play a react on that one, and then end off with a different chain enter. Whereas Diced blocks for 2 and also forces you into a certain play pattern. Whereas Twist and Turn is just a nice Scarf or Scarlet with that blocks 3.
Yeah, I'm gonna cement a nice B minus. There again, you can only play so many number of these, right? But this one is good. You know, a 0 for 4. That's good.
Great.
Next up, we've got Agility Stance. So Twist and Turn. So the first two cards we spoke about, Dice and Twist and Turn, they are cycles, worth pointing out. This next one is not, and it's part of, I guess, a semi-cycle, and it reminds me of a Fletch, the X era, right? A little bit, but they're a bit more defined. So this is just yellow, Agility Stance, rare, warrior action, aura. Defense for 3, cost 0, says go again. At the start of your turn, destroy this. Then your dagger attacks get go again this turn. Oh boy.
Yeah, I had a similar reaction. I give this a D. I just, like, why? Like, you just why? Because then you need some other way to attack with them again, or like, it's so... The number of hoops you have to go through to get enough value from this card is so many, and then the enough value isn't even that much either. I would be embarrassed to have this in my deck.
This is just cute, right? It's the whole... We're going to talk about the next two cards. We'll quickly go through them. But the whole power stance, flurry stance, agility stance, play them all together in wombo combo. Even if that came to fruition, or you had some, you know, the cards that give your daggers +1, whatever. It's a setup C+ at best, but I think this is D. I thought that one of these might have gotten your F, to be honest, but yeah, these cards aren't great.
And the thing is, even if you do the math on the wombo combo of all 3 stances, it's still not that impressive for 3 cards where you didn't. Yeah, so it's just like, why is it? I think it's potentially for some degenerate Fang combo in CC or something. And limited, yeah,
These cards suck.
I would hide my face if I had this card in my...
Yeah.
Next card we have...
I was going to say, yes, rip through the next two.
Oh, okay. Actually, hold on. Power stance, I'm not as low on. Yeah, I'm not as low on. Yeah. So, Flurry Stance, this is the red. Cost 0, warrior action, aura, blocks for 3. Has go again. It says, at the start of your turn, destroy this. Then you may attack with each dagger you control an additional time this turn. So, it's like Agility Stance, except instead of giving them go again, you can attack with them again, which means you're going to need to figure out a way to get them go again to get a lot of value from this. And I have this as a D as well, just red. It's like, why?
Yep, D. So, Power Stance is the blue warrior action, aura, rare. 0 cost, defense for 3, go again. At the start of your turn, destroy this. Then your dagger attacks get +1 this turn. Yeah, no, I like this card. I think what I like about this is that it's a bit of a chain extender. It's a blue, it blocks 3, and it can set up to give you an extra 2 damage and potential break points on the next turn. So I've got this at like a C+ range.
I give this a C. I think, I can have this in my deck and not be embarrassed about it. Blue block 3 is already a great floor. Mm-hmm. You want as many of them as possible. And the fact that when you most of the time should be swinging both of your daggers, and you get 2+2 damage on the following turn, which puts this a 0 for 2 go again. I think 0 for 2 go again on your blue block 3 is perfectly serviceable. Not incredibly exciting. I would be like, oh, you're not a good Fang deck unless you have this, but it's a great floor. So yeah, C is where I have it. Next we have Cut Deep. This is a 0 cost warrior action. It says your next dagger attack this turn gets +4, go again, and this blocks for 3. So it's technically a slightly worse Twist and Turn in that it doesn't have the additional on-hit ability. But I still have this as a B because I think it's just what I liked about Twist and Turn was that it was a 0 for 4 with go again on a block 3, and that's what this is as well. So
yeah, I'm struggling with these cards, honestly. I think I'm going to revise both Twist and Turn and this. I had Twist and Turn at a B-. Maybe I'm okay keeping that there, but I think this is basically the same card. I think for me they're more like C+. I think you can only play a couple of these. 0 for 4 is great, but just dagger returns in general aren't fantastic. And to make them value, you need to play undervalue cards. These kind of somewhat offset it, but Fang, I just struggle with Fang a little bit of the 3 heroes, honestly. I think it's maybe the hardest to build in my eyes, a good Fang deck. So, yeah, I'm honestly just not sure about these cards.
I could see that. And to your point about you can only have so many of these, I think it comes back to a discussion about payoffs and enablers, correct?
Yeah.
And I think when we spoke about the other payoffs, I feel like if these are your payoffs, like I'm okay with the other enablers. Like this is a payoff in that you still want the draconic attack reactions on your first link, so you actually get to convert your full hand and use all your resources. But I'll put this in a sort of payoff category where you get to play these cards when you have enough of those enablers. And then these are just 0 for 4 go against on block 3. I think feels good.
Yeah, and to that point, right, if you draw 2 of these, say you draw an all red hand, you draw 2 of these, you block with one of the reds, and then you play these 2, pitch the last red, and then come in for 9 off your dagger. Like, it's a 3-card 9 off an all red hand, or a 4-card 12 off an all red hand. It's not terrible, right? So I think I can see the value of these cards, and I definitely want to have them in my deck. And at the end of the day, Fang is it's maybe it is the most weapon centric of the 3 heroes, which is why I think it's a little bit difficult to evaluate. So you do really need to lean into those daggers. And again, I do think that's why the once you turn that fealty ability on, it is so insane, because all of a sudden you could be playing off, pitchless hands effectively in the end game, and cards like this are going to be absolutely clutch for big numbers when you do that. So yeah, I mean, I'm at C pluses on these, but I could easily be around a B minus. I do think these are relevant.
Enough.
All right, next up, we've got Hunt a Killer. This is a warrior action. It is a cycle at common, defense for 3, costs 1. We're looking at the red. It says your next dagger attack this turn gets +4, and when this hits a hero, mark them. So I like these. I mean, not that I don't like the other ones, and I know this one costs 1 as opposed to 0, so it's not a 0 for 4. I do think I want some ability to mark my opponent for sure, especially if I'm trying to play a double dagger centric plan and build towards fealty. I do need some of these cards in my deck.
Yeah, I have this at a C plus. I still like it as well, but I think if I had to pick between this and Cut Deep, I guess it also depends on the rest of the deck and how much other marking or fealty generation I have. Yeah. But like on just a very, very high level, I think I'm gonna pick Cut Deep slightly higher than this one. But I still think this is a good card, and this is why I still have it at a C plus. I wouldn't be like sad about this card. I just have it slightly lower than Cut Deep because I think I do value the. This is a 0 for 4.
Yeah, I have a C plus as well. I think I want some combination of both of these in my deck, so I'm just sitting them around the same one.
I think that makes sense. Next, we have Knife Through Butter, which is very similar to Hunter Killer. It's a 1-cost warrior action that blocks for 3. It says your next dagger attack this turn gets +4. Whenever you attack a marked hero this turn, the attack gets go again. This one's similar to Hunt the Killer, except the additional text is way worse.
Yeah.
Hunt the Killer gives you an on-hit mark. This one is, if they're already marked, your thing gets go again, but you're playing Fang, you should already have a different way to give it go again. I have this at a C minus.
Yeah, I have this at a C minus, similar range. I think there's going to be decks that need to have access to some of this, and where you're fighting over draconic cards, this might be an alternative potentially, more of a marked non-draconic focus, but I don't think that's particularly good, honestly. I think that might be a bit of a trap, so might be a bit of a third Fang deck syndrome at a draft table, honestly.
Yeah, I could see that.
Next up, Point of Engagement. Warrior action, common, 0 cost, defense for 3. Your next dagger attack this turn gets +3. Until end of turn, your attacks get +1 while attacking a marked hero. This is interesting because in theory, this could be a 0 for 5, right?
I think that's quite a few hoops.
Yeah,
I think
stretch.
the moment you play this, and your opponent would just be like, "Oh, okay, I'll let myself get hit on the first one, so that I'm no longer marked." Unless you have some other way to mark them in between or something. I think 0 for 4 is reasonable. With a hoop, 0 for 5, I think your opponent needs to remain marked after they see you play this.
Because of non-hit effect or something.
Unless it's an endgame state. Exactly. Oh, it's an endgame state and they're forced to block to stay alive, then sure. But I think most of the time it's 0 for 3 and maybe sometimes you get a 0 for 4. I have this at a C. I think it's fine. I think it's sharpened steel, basically, with a slight upside, sometimes.
Yeah. The problem is, when you talk about sharpened steel and even the limited format it existed with a weapon that was 1 for 3, not 1 for 1, right? If you're not able to utilize its ability. So, yeah, I'm at a C, though. I'm at a C. Next up is Sworn Vengeance. This is a warrior action, 0 cost, defense for 3. Common, your next dagger attack this turn gets +3, and when this hits a hero, mark them. So there you go. There's your sharpened steel, but better with an on-hit effect.
Yeah, this one I much prefer to point of engagement. This is a sharpened steel where you don't get additional +1 if they're already marked, but it helps you actually mark them. I have this at a C+. If you're gonna need some amount of non-draconic reacts. You're gonna need you won't be able to fill your deck with all of them, and if these are your filler cards where they either help you mark or help you generate fealty, I think that's where you want to be.
Yeah, this is good filler. I agree. I have this at a C+. Yeah, exactly. So that takes us out of the warrior cards, and now we're moving through into, I'm going to call it, but this is honestly, I think, the heart of the set, which I'm excited to talk about. We're going to talk about the Draconic cards next.
Yeah, I'm excited for this one. There's lots of cards that they've touched on an interesting design, this format, where they're touching on specific matchups. Like, there's a triangle, right?
Yeah.
And it also ties into the flavor and the theme and the lore of the set, where if you're a Syndra against an Arachne, you get certain benefits. And if you're Fang against Arachne, you get certain benefits because of the whole lore of the story. And I think it's done in a very interesting way, in a way that's also feels at least quite balanced so far, where there's a fair number of cards where, at least some of these equipment pieces, where the floor isn't so low that you feel really bad if you're not facing the matchup that you're facing. And the upside is just slightly higher that you do feel like you got the payoff for this, but the opponent also doesn't feel so bad that they're just, the wrong side of the matchup.
Yeah, exactly. And speaking of, I think, let's get straight into those cards you just spoke about, and we'll talk about them as a group maybe. So I'll read through them and then let's chat about them as a totality. So we've got the Vengeance equipment line, which is a Draconic equipment line where there's a head, chest, arms, and legs. They all defend for 1 and have blade break, and then have different text. So I'm just going to quickly rip through those. So Vow of Vengeance, which is the head, says attack reaction, destroy this, mark, target Arachne, and then you've got Heart of Vengeance, the chest, instant destroy this, your next attack this turn that targets Arachne, costs 1 less to play or activate. The arms is Hand of Vengeance, attack reaction, destroy this, target attack that is attacking Arachne gets +1, and then your Path of Vengeance, your legs, attack reaction, destroy this, target attack that is attacking Arachne gets go again. How do you evaluate these cards?
So, Jeff, we just have to point out that they all have Blade Break 1
Yes.
as their floor. So their floor is Iron Rod regardless of whether you're against Arachne or not. And I think that already puts them at a decent enough spot already, right? Especially in a deck where the kunai is flying around, they're coming for 1 exactly. You have cards like this, you can just buy yourself an extra card many of the times. I have kind of as a group grade, I have this at a C, mostly because I think in a drafting process, you're most of the time just going to treat them as Iron Rod. I'm not going to pick this higher because it has the other part of the text, right? Most of the time when I'm evaluating it, looking at the cards in a pack, I'll be like, this is Blade Break 1. That's pretty decent. The only one where I'm like, maybe this is slightly higher than a C is Vow of Vengeance for specifically Fang into Arachne, obviously. Because, Fang really wants to mark and get those fealty tokens. And Syndra not so much. So that's the only one where I was like, maybe that's slightly higher than a C. But for everything else, it was like, it's mostly Iron Rod.
Yeah, I have Iron Rod, I think, base probably at a B-. I'm really high on blocking equipment, especially as we move into sets where I think there's just more playable cards in the set as well. And I think there's some really relevant on-hit effects, or even just things like stopping marked, stopping fealty, things like that. So I do think the value of a blade break equipment can be a lot more than 1 a lot of the time as well. I think the upside, I'm with you, they're fairly across the board. I do think they're gonna feel different depending on the deck you're playing and also the slot they're competing with or against. So I have this like a B- and then sideboard into like a B+ is where I'm at.
I think you're completely right about evaluating Iron Rod higher than I did. Yeah, it's probably at the minimum a C+ and probably a B- as well. When you think about the play patterns that an Arachne is going to do on you, right? No matter which Draconic hero you are, the Arachne is going to be like, oh, you're marked, and then now the stealth cards are coming in for 4 instead of 3, and then you have this Blade Break to go cover up that break point. Or there's the Syndra stuff where it's like she's sending a kunai, and you kind of just want to block it because you're at 1 or something, and you can actually use this and not give up a whole card. I think I could be. Yeah, I think I'm talked up to a C+ to a B- range.
There we go. All right.
Next, we have Court of Allegiance. This is the, you called it wish.com Sash of Sendikai. It's a Draconic chest equipment. It says, action, destroy this, gain 1 resource. Until end of turn, you may only play cards that are Draconic. Go again.
Oh, I really like this card. I think this is very, very good.
I have a slightly differing grade depending on the hero. I have this at C+ in Syndra and C in Fang. Just because I think Syndra has an easier time playing only Draconic cards than Fang does. I might be completely wrong on that. Maybe it's completely different once you actually play a bunch of drafts. But yeah, I do like these cards. Are you high on them? It sounds like you might be high on them.
Yeah, I'm at like a B+ A- range on this card.
Oh, wow. Okay, tell me more about that.
I think cheating resources unlimited is kind of insane. Every time we've had access to it, even I think about something like 3-Bear Tunic, I think that card was honestly, even at the end, still really underrated, I think. And that had, its own stipulation to play with as well. I basically think that because you get to choose when you use this relative to what your hand is giving you, I will say maybe I could see this being more of a B range because of how short the games are and the fact that, to your point, it's a little bit more narrow in Fang than it is in Syndra. But I think that this unlocks some pretty potent turns with like a 4th resource or even the first resource where you're playing pitchless on something like Fang. So I just think any of these cards in the past have just been so powerful that, I mean, they printed Hardened Cross Trap. They then did Vest the First Fist. They're like, we can't. We have to give restrictions on these cards. And every time they print them, they're still good, I think. So yeah, I'm going to say at minimum I'm probably a B, and I think this could be as good as an A-.
I realized I misread this card actually. So I have been doing a bunch of like CC testing with like the new Draconic heroes and Arachne, and when I read this card, I just put the Oath of Loyalty text into it. So Oath of Loyalty is that Majestic, which says once you play this, you only play Draconic cards for the rest of the turn. But it has an additional stipulation on it that you can only play it if it is the first action of your turn.
Yeah.
This chess piece doesn't have
you can pop it at the end.
And that's very, very important. Yes, you could just play your non-Draconic stuff. You could play your Twist and Turn, or your whatever in your Fang, play that, and then pop this. And I completely missed that part of it when I was giving my grade. I just put the Oath of Loyalty text on as, oh, you have to start your turn with this. Oh, that's very restrictive, especially in Limited, where you can't just build your deck to be a whole bunch of Draconic cards. Okay, with that, yeah, I will go up on this card. I think I will. I'm definitely not reaching an A with it, I think. But I think I'll come up to like the B- range. I think I'll settle at B-.
All right, then I'll definitely lock in an A- then to be a grade above you, and then we'll see where it lands.
Sounds good.
Next up is Compounding Anger. This is a Draconic action attack at rare. It costs 3, defense of 3, attacks for 5. And this one is all these cards are red, by the way. This costs 1 less to play for each Draconic chain link you control. So a 3 for 5, but for each Draconic chain link, it's going to cost you 1 extra. This reminds me a little bit of Lava Burst from Uprising.
Yeah, the 0 cost Rupture. If it's your 4th one, then it comes in for 5.
Yeah.
I think this is higher in Syndra than in Fang. I think in Syndra, I could see this being a C+, in that you have the ceiling of 0 for 5. Yeah, but in Fang, I'm just like, this is really, really hard to pull off, and the payoff isn't even that great. I feel like in Fang, the payoff is this is a critical strike, because you went 5 in, turned it on, 5 in, turned it on, and then you end with this, and it still costs 1. So in Fang, I kind of gave this a D, because it feels like the ceiling is critical strike, and then the floor is unplayable card. That blocks 3 at least, so it's still like okay. But in Syndra, I could see this being a little higher. Not quite Lava Burst levels, I think. It's a bit hard to tell. It's gonna be deck reliant, obviously. So maybe there's some build around grade here, but I'm gonna just give this a C+ in Syndra.
Yeah, so it's funny you say that. I have this at a build around B, and I honestly think that I would slam this card pack 1, pick 1. I think this is actually, I think if you have this early, quite easy to build around, even if you're Fang. We spoke before about that play pattern of some of these cards that pay off requiring, they're not quite a payoff and they're not quite an enabler, but they make you play with a second dagger, right? And then you can go into something like a 1 cost. well, what kind of one cost are you going to go into? This is one of the best things Fang can do from a one coster, 1 for 5. So, and then when it comes to Syndra, if I can get this early and then set myself up to play this in a way where I can make this 0 for 5, use my fealties in the right way. This also blocks for 3, which is, I think, really nice. I do think this is a build around B, but even if I didn't get this a build around grade, I might just give this a B minus. Honestly, I think this card is really good, albeit a little bit requires some input from you.
I think the one in Fang in particular is the one that I think I contend with a little bit, because it's not only do you need to turn on both the Obsidian Fire Veins, you had to turn them on with 0 cost reacts or 0 cost instants.
Yep.
And then you get to have your one floating at the end to go ahead and play this. And again, it's critical strike at the end. It's like I went through all that effort. I'm using my second Draconic React on my Fire Vein to play a critical strike at the end of it. Like, I could see that, yeah, there's definitely some play. You do want some Chain Enders and Fang, I think, for a good Fang deck. I'm just not with you on the I would slam this pack 1, pick 1, I think. Especially if there's a chance I end up in Fang. In Syndra, I could see it being Lava Burst levels in Syndra.
Yeah, I just think this. I think if I compare this to what else with that one resource that Fang's doing, it's something like Hunter Killer, right? Which I do think is a good card. So I would agree, if I had to choose at the end of the draft, would I rather have the Hunt the Killer or the Compounding Anger? I'd rather have the Hunt the Killer, I think. Even for the 1 damage, the upside of the on hit and being easier to play, I think is going to be better for my deck. But I would, in Syndra, I think this is still very strong. So yeah, I think that's why I had that build around grade, honestly.
That makes sense. There actually is another one cost that we can come to later, that we're going to come to later, which I think is fantastic for Fang as a Chain Ender, as a cycle. We'll get to them. Next card, though, we're looking at Hunt to the Ends of Wraith, which is a 0 cost Draconic action attack. Comes in for 2 and blocks for 2. Has Go again. And this says, when this attacks Arachne, mark them. If this is attacking a marked hero, this gets +2.
Yeah, I mean, so as long as the opponent's marked, this is going to be a scar for a scar, right? But that's not quite the floor. The floor is 0 cost 2, Go again, but it is a Draconic attack. So I have this at a C+, and then I think against Arachne, this is like B+, A-.
I have this at a B- in Fang and a C in Syndra.
Okay.
I think Syndra
has other options.
I don't think Syndra needs this.
Yeah.
I think Syndra has so many other better options. If you're playing this in Syndra, it's kind of like, it's like you have better stuff in the Draconic Ninja side of things. You could still put this in her, but we had that other 0 for 2 that we spoke about, right? Yep. Where we were like, this is not, you can't be Syndra and doing things like this. But in Fang, though, I think he really likes Draconic Links before the daggers. And even if it's a 0 for 2 before your first Obsidian Fire Vein, now all your Draconic reacts that care about being on the second Draconic Chain Link are all turned on. And your Devotion's creating a fealty for you immediately on your first Obsidian Fire Vein for the turn because you started with this. That's why I'm a little higher on this card in Fang specifically.
That's fair. I mean, the thing that is, though, and this is quite interesting about this card, is that, and we haven't seen a lot of this in the history of Flesh and Blood, when you play against Arachne, this is a scar for a scar that's always on that marks them.
Well, if you're against Arachne, this has... Oh, I get what you're saying. Oh, sorry. Yes. You're right. If you're playing against Arachne, this is always scar for a scar, which is amazing.
That marks them.
Yeah.
Which at that point I think is B+ A- range. I think that is pretty insane card. It's a 0-4 Go again with upside of marking them.
Right. So in the sideboard category.
Yes, correct. Yeah. Which I think is interesting. All right, next up we've got March of Loyalty. This is another Draconic action attack at rare. Attacks of 4, defense of 3, cost 0. Says if you created a fealty token this turn, this gets Go again. Interesting.
I look at this card as Wounding Blow. I think this is Wounding Blow. I think you're very rarely gonna plan your turn around like getting a fealty and like to get the Go again. There are enough sort of ways to get fealty where your opponent can't interact with it. Like there's enough. Oh, this is my second Draconic Chain Link. I just made a fealty, and there's nothing you can say about it. That maybe you could rely on this when you're sequencing your turn. But when it's coming to the drafting process and picking this for my deck, I'm treating this as a Wounding Blow most of the time, and for that I give this a grade of C.
Yeah, it's so interesting because to your point, right, when you don't plan. Even when you do plan around this, sometimes it's like, well, actually, did I even need to go again? Or if I did need to go again, could I have actually done it in a way that's very efficient because of how I had to get to go again? So I do think there's a bit of a little bit of a trap lurking of, oh, this card when it has go again is really good, but actually, is it? Blaze Headlong is definitely better than this card, right? In that stage then, because it's much easier to give it the go again. So yeah, I have this at like a C plus. I was like, maybe this is a B minus, but the more I thought about it, I was like, this is definitely in the C range, I think, for me.
Yeah, it's Draconic Wounding Blow, to be honest, which isn't nothing.
Yeah,
like,
Draconic's
this is fine
good.
as a one-card play. Yeah. You have a fealty lying around, this is your one-card play or something for whatever reason. In Syndra, in particular, I think this could be a cool chain ender. This could be the one that gets you to your third Draconic Link, and then so you can buy back, daggers with Syndra's ability. But yeah, I think the text on this card is almost never... It shouldn't really be something that I think you draft towards.
No, definitely not.
And yeah, exactly. So it's all right, next we have Bubble to the Surface. It's a Draconic instant that costs 2, and it says this costs 1 less to play for each Draconic Chainlink you control. Reveal cards from the top of your deck until you've revealed a red card. Banish it. You may play it this turn. Shuffle.
Is this the F?
No, but this is D. This is D in Syndra for me and D plus in Fang.
Oh mate, we're on the same grade. D plus. That's what I had as well. Fodder. Some decks might need it, but you're not going to be happy to play it. That's for sure.
If you need this in your Fang deck, it's there because you desperately need it, and you're not in a happy place.
Yeah. Next up, we've got Drop of Dragon Blood. This is a Draconic instant, legendary, cost 2. This costs 1 less to play for each Draconic Train Link you control. Gain a resource, draw a card. I gotta say, Pankaj, I went through a real wheel of working out this card from this card's unplayable to this card's insane to I think where I landed on is this card is fine.
I have this at a D. I think it's just okay. I think random card draw in limited is very rarely something I rate super highly. It's kind of ugh. And the ceiling of this is that it replaces itself, right? That's the draw a card part, and you gain 1 resource.
Yep.
Like kind of the ceiling is you went +1 resource, and you had a random card draw. And the cost is that you didn't get to block with this card, and you didn't get to plan your turn fully either, or you were forced into this play pattern where you sort of committed to just arsling whatever card you draw, kind of thing. Maybe there's a D plus for Fang specifically because of the whole Obsidian Firevein thing, but I'm not. Again, it's similar to the other one where it's like, if this is where I need to reach to turn on my Obsidian Fireveins, I'm not very happy about it.
Yeah, I think I needed some convincing on this card. I was like, oh, maybe I'm back up to a C, but no, actually, you're right. This is just like a D plus, probably range, honestly. Like it's playable in a pinch if you need to, but again, you're going to be pretty upset if you're having to put Bubble to the Surfaces and Drop of Dragon Bloods in your deck, honestly. It's not a good place to be.
Yeah. It's probably slightly better than Bubble to the Surface, but yeah, it's just what cards you're happy to play with. Yeah. Next, we have Rake Over the Coals, which is another Draconic instant. It costs 0. It says Draconic attacks get +1 attack this turn.
Okay.
So it's kind of like Uprising, except it doesn't block 3 and it's an instant. Yeah, it's I have it as a D for Syndra. I think sure in Syndra you'll probably be able to go wide enough with this that you maybe can get like a fair value from it. But the instant part of it, I don't know, I'm not such a big fan. And in Fang, I have C minus, where I'm just like, sure, it's kind of in the 0 for 2 attack react range, as we spoke about for all the other ones. But this one doesn't block. The other 0 for 2 Draconic reacts that we saw still block 2 at least, and this is a complete no block. So you play it if you have to, but you're not thrilled.
Yeah, I think this is I'd almost want to give this a build around grade for Syndra. And I think in Fang, it's mostly going to be a 0 for 1. Sometimes you might get the 0 for 2 value, at which point you wish it was any of the other Draconic attack reactions, honestly. But, Syndra might have a build around of being like, I am on a double kunai 0 cost turn here where I might have up to 5 Draconic Chain Links at the very ceiling, which would obviously be insane with the 0-5. You're more likely going to be a 0 for 3 or 0 for 4 in Syndra. So I have this at a C+, I think, but it's like all in all, some decks are going to be like unplayable, and some decks this is going to be fairly reasonable to spiking some good turns sometimes.
I did give it I did note in my notes, I was like, maybe a slight setup grade for Syndra, which is, I think, what you're alluding to.
Yeah.
So, yeah, could see it.
Yep. Right, Blaze Headlong, another reprint and fan favorite coming back here. Blaze Headlong, sorry, is a Draconic attack action. Attacks 4, defense for 2, cost 0. If you've played another red card this turn, this gets go again. I mean, I think this is still just as good. It's still good. Maybe not as good as it was in Uprising, but this is a 0 for 4 that's very easy to turn on still. So I have this at like a B plus range.
I have it as a B in Syndra and a C plus in Fang.
Oh, that's fair.
Syndra turns this on super easily. I feel like Syndra kind of just turns this on in his sleep and can just go ahead and get Scar for Scar easily. That's really cool. Fang struggles a little bit more to turn this on, but it's still good in him that I would still like draft it. But again, it's not. Yeah, it's you do need to make sure you have the other enablers in Fang. So yeah, slightly lower on it in him than in Syndra.
Does Fang struggle to turn this on? Because even if you are going to not be getting go again, I think this is one of the cards that helps Fang do better numbers, because you can do things like play your non-attack action red card, your warrior front pump, attack with Blaze Headlong, and then swing with your dagger, even if you don't have a way to give it go again.
I guess when I said Fang maybe finds it harder to turn this on, I guess maybe rather what I was saying is this occupies the same small number of premium slots that you have in your Fang deck that aren't dedicated to your role players and to your Draconic attack reacts. Like your Twist and Turns, and the other Dagger 0 for 4 non-attack front pump. This is in a similar category to those, in my opinion, where it's sort of the payoff-ish sort of role again, right? Where these cards only work when you already have those other enablers that actually let you swing your daggers.
Yeah. Yep, that's fair. I guess the only thing I would say is that although this blocks for 2 versus 3, this is obviously a much better one-card play than Twist and Turn. And one thing I do like to look at with something like Twist and Turn is that it does require you to attack with your dagger, which takes the average value of the card like Twist and Turn down. So I don't know. I'm really high on Blaze Headlong because I think it just helps the numbers, or the average number that your cards are doing in terms of dealing damage.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Cool. Next, we have for the Drakai. It's a 0-cost Draconic action attack. Comes in for 4, blocks for 3, so wounding blow stats. It says, when this attacks a marked hero, create a fealty token. And this is what I was alluding to earlier in terms of better chain enders for Fang. There is a cycle. Actually, we can probably just mention there's a cycle where for the Emperor is the same tax, but it costs 1 and comes in for 5. Yep. And then there's for the Realm, which costs 2 and comes in for 6.
Yep.
And they'll have the same text.
Yep, I've shown them all together, so let's talk.
What are your thoughts on these?
Let's talk about them together. I've just showed them. I agree. I think the wounding blow, so for the Drakai, is the probably the best version of this. I think because of what you said, Fang, but also I think you're not really going to get the value of the marked against. Sorry, when you play this in Syndra, I don't think a lot of the time they're not going to be marked. It probably already hit, for instance. But I also think the for Emperor, if you have basically, I think this comes down to cost structure, honestly, and I think ultimately, although for the Realm being a 2-cost, and traditionally that 2-card 6, and if you can use the resource, it's great. I think it's a lot harder to use 1 resource in this format some of the time than it is to use no resources or 1 resource. So I kind of have them in order of like for the Drakai and for the Emperor close to each other, and then for the Realm a bit lower.
Yeah, I kind of had C plus, C, and then C minus in that order for the 3 of them. There is something interesting to be said about 2 for 6, is that it actually weirdly seems okay in this format.
There's not a lot of it.
When I saw 2 for 6 as being... there's not too many of them. And most things are just like small ball numbers, right? And it's mostly about going wide. But sometimes that 1 tall attack actually can just be fine. It's not a very fatiguey format, so the deck damage part of it doesn't super matter. Like doesn't matter so much that there's like 1 dense card that takes 2 cards for them to block. But somehow the 2 for 6 still seemed fine. And Syndra theoretically can go kunai into the 2 for 6, I guess, but then you sort of give up buying back something with Syndra. But it's not terrible. What I like about these cycle of cards is that for Fang in particular, you can set of situations where you get 1 to 2 fealties from one card. If you get 2 fealties from the same card, it is absolutely incredible. And the floor being Winning Blow, Critical Strike, and Brutal Assault is fine.
Yeah. I think what's interesting is you could do something like Kunai into Burning Blade Dance, throw the dagger, for instance, and then come in with this and then return your dagger. So like I think there is some play with this card, to your point. Like it's maybe not so exciting off a 2-card hand, but off like a 3-card hand, that might be more enticing, where you can play a 0-cost Draconic to then trigger your hero ability on the Fallen Realm specifically.
For Syndra specifically.
Yeah, Syndra specifically on Fallen Realm.
Fang doesn't want this for sure.
No, I agree. I think this, and that's why I think this is the lowest, because it's unplayable maybe in Fang. Not unplayable. It's not good though.
But the 1-cost one I do like in Fang, and
yes.
like we spoke about earlier. I was like, ooh, there's a 1-cost one coming up later, which I think is a much better chain end of Fang, compared to I think Compounding Anger was the one we were talking about.
Yeah, maybe even for the Drakai is better, to be honest.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so, sometimes you're gonna get like 2 fealties off this one card, and that's awesome.
Yeah, it's very good. Next up, Hunt the Hunter. This is a Draconic action attack. It is 5 attack, 3 defense, costs 1, and says when this attacks hero, if you have played another red card this turn, mark them. I mean, I like this card. I think this card is good. I want this card in my deck as an ender.
I have this as a B+. I think this card's incredible. I think even in Fang, you're very happy to just go dagger and then some 1-cost react into this. Like the 1-cost red react into this, exactly. And then you mark them, and it's critical strike with upside, and it says Draconic on it.
Yeah, I think I had this, for some reason I had this as a C+, but I think this is, I'm not sure I'm at a B+, but I'm at like a solid B on this, I think.
I think there's probably an argument to be made where it's maybe B+ for Fang, and then like in the C+ for Syndra, and then B's like right in the middle for like both of them. Because Syndra doesn't. Maybe. I mean, like she's like fine to mark, but yeah, I think Fang wants that effect a little bit more.
Yeah, that's fair.
Potentially.
Yep, it's hard to come by as well. It's like it's not that easy, honestly, to mark necessarily Fang, and you do want to be doing it consistently.
Exactly, and this is probably one of the easiest ways for Fang to mark.
Yeah.
Opponents. Next, we have Smokeout. It's a 0-cost Draconic defense reaction that blocks for 3. And it says, when this defends a red card, mark the attacking hero. And I've got this, similar to when we spoke about the trap in Arachne. I have a B for the first copy. And better in Fang than in Syndra, for sure. But I think it's still great. Mostly because it says defense reaction on the card.
Yeah, I have this at B. I think this is like a B+ in Fang, honestly. Definitely the first copy. I think that if you can potentially find ways to mark on both sides of the table so that you can do it and then you can play into your fealty, I think it's really good. Like start the turn already marked as opposed to having to find a way to do it. So for instance, you mark on your turn, you get the fealty, and then they're now unmarked. You mark on their turn, then you come in and get another fealty. Plus, potentially, you make another fealty on that. Like, all of a sudden, you could be turn 2 and you've got 3 fealty because of a card like this.
Agreed. Just being able to mark on your opponent's turn is incredible. And there is a lot of value in the defense reaction part of it as well. This is maybe not Syndra, but when you're against Arachnes and you're against other Fangs, just having defense reactions is just, there's implicit value in that.
Yep. Next up, Blessing of Vincerikai, Draconic action aura. Defense for 2, cost 0, says at the start of your turn, destroy this, and then your next attack this turn is Draconic and gets +3. This is interesting for me to evaluate because it's a nimblism, I guess, for your attacks, but it's in an aura form, but it does make them Draconic, which is not irrelevant, but I don't know, how good is this card really?
I give this a D. I don't like it. It's not just nimblism because it doesn't have go again. So it's just it's until your next turn.
I just assumed this had go again.
It doesn't have go again. So you need to play this at the end of your turn or whatever, and then you get the payoff on the following turn. And I'm just like, I don't know, like, and then your next attack distance. Syndra's cards that want to be Draconic are Chain Enders, so she's kind of like whatever about the first card being turned Draconic. A lot of times Fang's going to start his turn with a dagger, which is already Draconic, so it's really just, it's nimblism for your next turn.
Yeah.
So
okay,
I don't think either of them is actually trying to do this.
Nah, D.
I just give it a D.
Yeah, I'm on board. We're next.
Pledge Fealty. 0 cost Draconic Instant. This says create a P token. This is funny because this card's actually incredible in CC. Like in the Fang CC list, you actually do want a bunch of these because you're just trying to turbo get to like Fealty as soon as possible. But you can do that in CC because you can sort of have a critical density of Fealty generators.
Use payoffs as well.
Then you can do it. Yeah, and in Limited, I have this as a C in Fang and a D in Syndra.
Yeah, I mean, this is, I think, if you've put this in your Syndra deck, something has gone wrong, I think. I have this at like a C minus D plus, honestly. I think this card is like, if you have to end up playing this in, I think this is okay in Fang. I think there's going to be Fang decks that do actively want this card, depending on how they've set up their deck. So, yeah, but I still think it's probably a role player at that point.
Yeah, I think you're probably putting the other Draconic Reacts in first. You're looking for them before you look for them.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's just a sort of unconditional creative fealty right now in Fang has a little bit more value, but still, yeah, you're not thrilled. So
yeah, like
I think we're both in the C-ish sort of range.
Imagine if you play this to give your first dagger go again, then is your third fealty, and then you get to attack for free with your second one, and you've set up your third fealty, for instance. Like, that is actually pretty reasonable. I do think there's going to be versions of Fang that do want this card, but it's probably going to be 1, maybe 2 max, and yeah, you're not taking them early. Right, Proclaim Vengeance is Draconic Instant, 0 cost, and says it doesn't defend for anything. It's an instant. Mark, target opposing hero. If that hero is Arachne, gain 1 resource. I mean, this to me just feels like a sideboard card for Fang versus Arachne, and at that point it's still probably a C.
I give this the same grade as Pledge Fealty because, again, in Syndra, I don't want this at all. And in Fang, it's sort of the same text as Pledge Fealty because when you mark your opponent as Fang, because of how hard he used to block and the Fire Veins kind of being like 4 a lot of the time, you're going to get the Fealty. So, yeah, I have this as a C in Fang and a D in Syndra for the exact same reason as Pledge Fealty. Also, small tangent about this card. A lot of my CC like sort of testing and brewing so far has been playing Marinette into one of my testing partners, Fang, and he runs this card, and so it's really funny that gain a resource text is actually live in CC, and I'm just like, I can't believe that's just actually happening. I just got a resource because I'm Marinette, and you're playing Fang, and you put this card in your deck. Anyway, C in Fang, D in Syndra for me. I think you're okay if this is one of the role players in Fang, but it's not a high priority role player.
Mm-hmm.
What grade did you give it?
Oh, sorry. Yes, I'm on board. I've got this at like a side. I honestly just think this is a sideboard card for Fang into Arachne of a C, so that you can leverage that resource. Otherwise, I think it's worse than Pledge Fealty. Next up, Tooth of the Dragon, Draconic Instant, 0 cost again. Your next Draconic attack this turn gets +3. This card I'm more interested in for Fang. I'll tell you what.
I like this. I have a B. For Fang specifically, I have this as a B. I think this is very much a similar level to like Affirm Loyalties and Your Devotion on that sort of range in Fang. In Syndra, I have this as a C.
Yeah. I'm really not keen on playing this in Syndra. It's not a Draconic Chain Link. I actually think I have this more like honestly like a D plus for Syndra. But I think overall I have this card like a C plus. Because I do think it's good for Fang. I think it's like a C plus, maybe even B minus for Fang. So yeah.
Yeah, in Fang, I think this is probably one of your better role player cards. In this, it's on a similar vein as like the Draconic Warrior attack reaction.
Yeah.
And yeah, I agree with you. Not being a Draconic Link makes it a bit of a liability in Syndra. Yeah.
But not terrible. All right. We move on now to the hybrid cards, starting with Assassin and Ninja. And we've got another equipment suite, which I think we'll just talk about as the 4 of, which is the Leapfrog set of equipment, which effectively they all have Blade Break 1, and they have the Leapfrog ability, which is similar to our preview card that we showed. So similar in a way, when an opponent plays or activates an attack reaction, you may add this to the active chain link as a defending card. They are assassin/ninja equipment, and so yeah, if you block with this and then on a dagger, say Obsidian Fire Vein, and then they play another, they play a react onto it, or on their second dagger, you could jump this across, for instance, onto the second dagger. So yeah, very interesting cards. There's 4. There's the head, which is Vocal Sack. There's Slime Skin, which is the chest. Frog Gloves, the arms, and then Frog Leggings, which is of course the legs.
It's super interesting that these aren't defense reactions that you can only activate if your opponent has played an attack reaction. Like the way it's worded is
odd.
they've played or activated an attack reaction. You have to decide right now whether you are going ahead and adding this, which means you can't wait to see whether they're going to react further, which is interesting. Whereas a normal D reactor could be like, let them do all their reacts and then pass priority to you, and which is a small little thing to bring up. Also important to note that you can't, like, this doesn't trigger when they play instants, so it's particularly against Fang.
Yeah.
If he's doing a Draconic instant on the Fire Vein, you can't go ahead and put this. It cares about reaction specifically. Onto the grade. I had this as a C+, although you did talk me up on Iron Rot cards in general with the last time we spoke about this in the earlier section. So I could go up to a B- here. I think Blade Break 1 is just a fantastic floor. Interestingly, I think about this set in particular is that it gets better the more you have.
It does.
Think. Like, imagine you have like 3 of these and you're against an Arachne and they're just like, wait, what? Like, they play a 0 for 3 pump on an on-head. Like, they activate the Agent of Chaos ability, right? The Black Widow or whatever, and you just have 3 of these and you just cover it up immediately. This is an interesting thing to talk about, where it's the opposite of diminishing returns. It's almost like a set bonus.
Yeah, the thing with this is that they're so often incentivized just to break the chain, and so when you find cards that incentivize them to not break the chain, I think is when you're going to try and get your 2 value out of this. Otherwise, it's going to be very hard to get 2 value out of these. So I'm at like a B- on these as well for that reason, because I think that these are probably the hardest to get the value out of as opposed to some of the other equipment.
Yeah, the value of getting like 2 block from them probably almost never gonna happen. It's more the value of you get to react to them reacting, which when it comes to endgame situations is actually super relevant. Right? Where you can
you're on say 5, you block with 1 card, and then they take their 3 attack to 6, and you can also you're on 4 whatever, and then you can or 3 and then you can add this to the chain so you survive 1 life, for instance. I think is very relevant, as opposed to just having to commit it up front and overblocking.
Next, we have Danger Digits, and we alluded to this earlier. This is the one-time use flick knives, basically. It's an Assassin Ninja equipment arm slot. It says, attack reaction, destroy this. Target dagger you control that isn't on the active chain link deals 1 damage to the defending hero. If damage is dealt this way, the dagger has hit. Destroy the dagger. One-time use flick knives and limited Hayden.
Yeah, I have this at a B-. I think this card is, when it's good, it's going to be really good, and sometimes this card is going to just be 1 damage, right? Which
I have this. I have this as an A in Arachne. I think
that's fair.
Is quite critical. I think your Arachne deck is significantly better if you have this in your Syndra. Syndra probably a little lower. I think Syndra could be like, it's more in the B+-ish range. It's more like it gives you access to getting 2 guys in a grave on 1 turn to like buy them back. So it can set up that sort of power turn board. But yeah, for Arachne, I think this is almost like first pickable range. Actually, no, I think it is first pickable. Like you do this and you sort of be like, okay, cool. Be very happy if I end up in Arachne because I have this card.
Yeah, you are right. I can be talked up actually to a B+ overall, just for the fact that in Arachne, the difference between having this and not having this in your deck, I think, is going to be quite significant, to the level of some of the most important equipment we've seen from, I don't think it's quite Chapeau level for Betsy, mostly because I think Betsy was a bit bad if you didn't have Chapeau, but it's a similar kind of vein of impact that this can have on the game, I think.
I think the biggest thing is that the Marinette base +1 ability as well. So it's not only are you like insta marking them at reaction speed, you're giving your attack that's on the chain +1 too a lot of the time. And if that's a stealth attack that matters, like Mark of the Black Widow or something, your opponent can't just safely block 3 ever on these stealth attacks when you just have this lying around.
Yeah.
And I think that just adds a very important dynamic.
Yep, agree. All right, next up we've got Cut Through. This is another Assassin Ninja hybrid. It's an attack action at rare. It costs 0, attacks for 3, defense for 2. Looking at the red one here, it says if you hit with a dagger this combat chain, this gets +1 and go again. So if you've already come with a dagger, then say your kunai or your mark, then you come with this, it's a scar for scar turned on.
Yeah. I give this a C. I think Syndra likely has better options. She has tons of like good Gogan cards, particularly in the Draconic side of things as well, to contribute to Draconic chain links. Maybe it's a little bit better in Syndra, to be honest. I could be talked up to like a C plus in Syndra, maybe. Arachne, though, I would stick with a C. I don't think they turn this card on very, very easily.
That's interesting. Yeah. I think the fact this blocks for 2, so you can't just translate this into an easy 3 block, brings it down a bit for me.
Yeah.
But I do think that I guess the flexibility of this card being a hybrid, I do give some amount of. So I would have this, if this was just one class, I'd probably have this in the C range. I've got this at a B minus just for the fact that this is hybrid and does keep you open, which I quite like. And I do think this card is a card you're happy to have in your deck.
That's a very fair point. I actually did not consider that when I was giving my grade. I didn't think about the part. Like, I immediately thought about it in the play patterns of Syndra and the play patterns of Arachne.
Yeah.
We bring up an excellent point about in the drafting process itself, how highly would you pick a card? And yeah, I think you're right. For that reason, you can. It's probably higher than a C in terms of when you're looking at it from a drafting perspective.
Yeah. All right.
Next, we have Up Sticks and Run, 0 cost assassin/ninja action, blocks for 2. Says you may retrieve a dagger from your graveyard, which is you pay 1 to equip it. It says your next dagger attack this turn gets +4, and it has Go again. I have this as a B. It honestly might even be higher. This is a CC playable card.
This might be one of my favorite cards in the set. I've got this at an A minus in red. I think this is a very, very good card.
Yeah, I like I said, I give this a B, and I was like, yep, probably could be talked up into it and wouldn't need too much convincing. I mean, it's 0 for 4. Just straight up, scar for scar, unconditional in that sense. Retrieving a dagger part of it, we spoke a lot during the Arachne section about how conservative you might need to be with the Mark of the Huntsman. If you have one of these in your deck, that's one more Mark of the Huntsman you have throughout the game. If you have something like the arm slot as well, you don't even need to like pay for the dagger, and you can just send something else, retrieve it with this, get +4 on your next dagger attack. I think that's a very
Yeah, and even the blue in Arachne is very good.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah, cool.
Definition of premium card, I think.
I agree. I think this is that's a pack on pick one. Next up, we've got Pick Up the Point. This is Assassin Ninja action attack, hybrid at a common cycle. We're looking at red. 0 cost, attacks for 3, defends for 2. Says when this attacks, you may retrieve a dagger from your graveyard. Go again. Retrieve is pay 1, of course, to equip it out of your graveyard.
I'm in the C plus range for this. I think the retreat part of it is very, very good. Somewhere Up 6 and Run. I think what this allows you to do, particularly in Syndra, is allows you to play games with like breaking the chain in the middle here and there.
Mm-hmm.
You can send a kunai, break the chain, now that one's in the yard, then you play this, and now you get to swing kunais. Oh, another. Well, you get an extra swing of the kunai basically.
Yeah.
With the retrieve stuff when you break the chain. Arachne we spoke about already. Recurring Marker of the Huntsman, I think, is strong. It's not quite Up Sticks and Run level, obviously, because it's 0 for 3 instead of 4. But I think it's still good enough. I'd be happy to have it.
Yeah, I'm happy to have a couple of these in my deck, and I'm especially happy to have them in Syndra if I have spare fealty floating around, so that I can make this a potential Draconic chain link for my second effects have abilities. But at that point, could I have just attacked with a kunai instead anyway, or something better? So I have the red at a B minus, but maybe I'm more around a C. I think the difference between this and Up 6 and Run is, I think, pretty massive, honestly. And Pick Up the Point actually might just be a better Arachne card, and Syndra, it's pretty average.
The other thing about Up Sticks and Run that we didn't quite cover, that I mean, it's not just that it's 1 point of value more damage. It's also where the damage is going, particularly for Arachne. It means a Mark of the Huntsman is not coming in for 5,
yes,
which is a big difference. When otherwise it's coming for 1, they can cover it up with one of the iron rods or something. Coming in for 5, that's a lot bigger. So that is the other relevant part, aside from also being 1 point higher in damage.
Mm-hmm.
Next, we have Poisoned Blade. This is a 1 cost Assassin Ninja attack. Comes in for 3, blocks for 2, has Go again. Says whenever a dagger you own hits a hero this combat chain, they lose.
I think this card is fine. I'm not super thrilled about having it, honestly, because in Syndra, I might double kunai and that threatens extra damage, but the downside of this being a 1-cost 3 go again non-draconic is very real. So I just have this at like a C. I think this is like filler.
I give this a C- in Syndra for those reasons. I think, yeah, it's like the ceiling is a 1 for 5 go again if you swing both your kunais, but then you're swinging both your kunais. So you either need to have both of them already, and it'll be hard for you to buy them back, at least on this turn. So because they'll be on the chain. So yeah, Syndra C-, and Arachne I have this as a D.
Yeah.
Just it's non-stealth, and I think that's like not nothing. The best thing about it in Arachne is that it's an extender. Seems like they might need sometimes.
Potentially.
But 3 go again, probably only getting 1 trick off of it. 1 for 4 go again in Arachne. I don't know. Kind of like about it.
Yeah. Next up is throw yourself at them. Assassin Ninja Hybrid at red. We're looking at the red one. 3 attack, 2 defense. When this attacks a hero, you may have target dagger you control deal 1 damage to them. If damage is dealt this way, the dagger has hit, destroy the dagger. I'm much more interested in something like a flick effect as opposed to the poison effect. I have this at a C+.
I have this as a C. I will just point out, I think I'm happier with this card in Syndra than in Arachne.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Arachne, it was the same thing when we were discussing Bite, is that you can send your dagger, you mark them, but then this attack is going to consume the mark immediately. And this attack isn't something you care about consuming them. It actually won't even get the +1 from Marinette's base text because it doesn't have stealth. So you didn't even get the extra +1 either. And you're not flipping, and everything that goes with consuming a mark on an attack that doesn't. So, yeah, I'm kind of like low on it in Arachne, but and in Syndra, we spoke about flick effects being powerful in Syndra. So I'm a little high on it in Syndra. I still just gave it a C overall.
Yeah, I think if I was using this, honestly, the way I would be preferring to use it is something like swing, like have them marked to start the turn, swing my stealth card, swing my dagger, then swing this, and it's like, yeah, it's a chain extender, it does some stuff where you swing it into another stealth card. It's awkward, and it's not necessarily where you want to be.
And that line where you have them marked to start the turn and you start your turn with a stealth attack, you are sort of relying on the stealth attack hitting, right?
Yeah, it's yeah. So, or they're just not marked at all, and then, yeah, it's still not great, is it? It's not great, because either that, if you
yeah.
play the second after the dagger, then you're probably losing your marked on your next attack anyway, so it's not necessarily going to be. All right.
But Syndra, yeah, you can go ahead and get an extra kunai guard.
Yeah. Next up, Lair of the Spider. This is a Assassin Ninja Defense Reaction Trap, defense for 3, it's at red, cost 0. This one is only at red, unlike the rest of the hybrid cards, or most of the hybrid cards we've just spoken about. When this defends an attack with go again, mark the attacking hero. I have this as an A.
Oh, yeah, this is an A. Okay, I have this as a B. Again, same stipulation as the earlier trap. B, first copy. Probably a bit higher on this in Arachne specifically compared to Syndra. Again, because you do need at least that first copy of a trap in Arachne. A lot more than you need it in Syndra. Mm-hmm. It says D react on it. It marks on defense. I like it. I'm high on the card. I would say B. Curious about A. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, I think defense reactions are really good in this set, and there's not too many of them, and I think this is the best one. And I think that particularly for Fang, this card's ceiling is massive. We spoke about before of getting the double-ended, like starting the turn with mark because of something like this on the defensive side, potentially stopping. There's some really good on-hit effects, and you do need to block in this format some of these on-hit effects, especially with a hero like Fang. You want to use your hand in the right way. So I think in Syndra even, that the fact that you can turn this mark into the fealty and have some relevance of these pump effects with the fealty, and that you're not going to play a lot of necessarily mark cards. I think this is a lot worse than Syndra. Like, I do think this is like in the low B range, but I do think for Fang this card is insanely high ceiling, and I think for that maybe this lands me more like an A-, but I just, all things considered, I really like this card.
Just going to point out real quick, you can't play this in Fang.
I didn't mean to say Fang.
The Assassin
I meant Arachne.
yeah.
I said Fang. I meant Arachne. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay, all good. And I think in Arachne, where you start your turn and they're marked already, your first stealth attack already is a +1, and the potential for go again rider, pretty good. Cool, fair enough. And again, in Arachne too, it's a trap, and get that.
Yeah, correct. All right, it's late here. It's we've been recording a while. We're getting through them. We're doing a good job. It's currently 10 to midnight my time, but we're doing it. We're doing the set review. We're smashing it. Next up, we're going to talk about the Assassin Warrior hybrid cards, and we've got another equipment suite to talk about. So this is the Red Alert equipment suite. Again, these are all blade breaks. There's a head, chest, legs, and arms, and they say if an attack reaction has been played or activated this chain link, this gets +1 defense. They all say the same thing. You've got a visor, a vest, a gloves, and a boots. What are we thinking?
Same as my earlier ones, Hayden. I gave all these Iron Rod C pluses in my evaluation, but again, like I said for the previous set, I think probably talked me up to B minus. Iron Rod, just good, and then this is Iron upside sometimes. Again, has its stipulation against Fang in particular, where they play an instant on the this thing won't get the buff from it. But I think if you're against Arachne and Fang, you're going to be pretty happy to have these cards.
Yeah, I have this at a B, and honestly, I think that I could see a world where I eventually land on like a B plus for some of these, simply because of the fact that I think you can really get yourself into a position where you can get 2 value out of these. Like you're going to be in a position where it's like, okay, yes, Fang does have instance, but a lot of the time they're going to have attack reactions. And if you put yourself in a spot of, okay, I'm going to block with this, and if they don't have the attack reaction, well, I've gotten value, I'm getting value anyway, they're not going to be able to do the thing they need to do. And if they do, which is quite likely, I'm getting the 2 value out of this. And same to a degree with Arachne. I think you'll be able to find yourselves in spots where, unlike the Leapfrog, you're going to be able to, not consistently, I think, it's still going to be a percentage of the time, but I think it's going to be enough that these are worth, and especially having the first one or 2, I think you're going to be able to find a way to get potentially 2 value out of them.
Particularly when you think about the random +1s that Marionette's going to get, right? If they mark you in the reaction step, I think to counteract that probably involves a 2 block on your side or something like that. But still, I think that value itself could be quite. You could just insulate yourself from like, oh, they have the arm piece that flicks a dagger at you, deadly digits. Yeah, if they have like deadly digits, you can like put this and a 2 block in front of the stealth attack, and even if they're deadly digits, to turn the stealth attack into a 4 attack, this thing will just trigger and then block out the attack anyway. So the value you can get from just insulating yourself from plays like this, I think, is pretty valuable. On top of the floor being Iron Rod.
Yep. Moving on.
Next. Yep, we have Starting Point. It's an Assassin Warrior leg equipment. Blocked for 0. It says attack, reaction, destroy this. Target attack gets go again. And activate this only if you've played a card or activated an ability this reaction step.
I mean, it's pretty good for Fang, right, as insurance. When you don't, you just have the normal reaction, or I guess.
Interesting. I had this lower in Fang than in Arachne. To your point, yes, it is insurance, but I guess I was like kind of like Fang should already have GA.
Ideally, yeah.
Like should already have go again if they've activated something. But yeah, you're right. It's insurance. It's there. In I put this as a C in Arachne and a D in Fang.
Yeah.
I was like, it's. Yeah.
Interesting. I guess one of the cute things you can do is you can crack a fealty, and then crack this. If you don't have, like, if you've just drawn like a no reaction hand for it, like if you've just drawn all front pumps plus an attack or something, or drawn like multiple attacks. So you can do some cute stuff like that because it is.
I see, because you've activated an ability.
Yeah. During the reaction step. But and I guess when you talk about Arachne specifically, there will be times where it's like I have the reaction, but I can't give go again. I actually am a lot higher on this card. I do really like equipments though in limited. I am really just generally probably quite high on them. So I do have this at C plus B minus. I actually think I'm in the B. I think I'm a B minus.
I should probably, at least for Arachne in particular. Fang, not super convinced yet, but I think for Arachne, I could see myself going up to a B on this. I think simply because it opens up different player lines for you. I think a lot of times as an assassin, like if you draw multiple stealth attacks, you're probably committed to blocking with some of them.
Yeah.
But if you have this on the field, you just give yourself that moment in the game where you're like, oh, my opponent stumbled a little bit. Instead of inefficiently blocking because they didn't have a threatening turn, I can actually convert my hand fully. Or I just want to shut the door on them where I have the life total, and this lets me send 2 decent attacks on this turn and kind of just win the game on this turn cycle rather than drawing it out a little bit more. So yeah, I could see myself going up on this in Arachne.
Next up, to the point, Assassin Warrior, attack reaction at rear, defense for 2. It's looking at the red one, cost 0. Target dagger attack gets +3. If the defending hero is marked, instead it gets +4. I mean, I think this is a solid card. Obviously, downside is this is not Draconic for our warrior friends. The marked ability, how often are you going to get this, and how often is this going to just be a 0 for 3?
Yeah, it's not Draconic, which is a downside for the warrior, but I'll also point out Arachne isn't really trying to buff the daggers very much. I think in the other reacts that we spoke about earlier, and we gave them points for being able to buff daggers, it was also because they had the other option where they buffed the stealth attack. This is only buffing the dagger, so there's downsides for both Fang and Arachne here. Arachne is forced to use this on a dagger when they might not necessarily want to, and then Fang, this isn't Draconic. So I'm kind of like in the C- range for both of them.
Yeah, I'm at C+. I mean, it comes down to your fealty usage in Fang as well. I mean, a 0 for 4 potentially, but it's not guaranteed. I'm actually going to come down to a C.
Yeah.
Come down to a C.
There is value in, again, like buffing of the dagger. Like for Arachne, there's value in having reacts that buff your dagger for sure, because a lot of times people are super expecting it and you can just get them. Or because of cards like this, they're forced to respect your daggers, which there is value. But yeah, I'm not going to go out of my way to go ahead and put this in my deck. So yeah, I think the C-ish range is. Next, we have Cut from the Same Cloth, which is a 0-cost Assassin Warrior action that blocks for 2. It says, target opposing hero reveals their hand. If an attack reaction card is revealed this way, mark them. Your next dagger attack this turn gets +4 power. Go again. I give this a B. 0 for 4. And the other text of it, the attack reaction part, and you mark them, whatever, I think that's gravy. Sure, you're against a Fang or Arachne. I guess against a Fang, you're very likely to get this. You're against Arachne, maybe you're somewhat likely to, but the floor being a 0 for 4. And, I like it.
Yeah, I have this B-. I think to your point before about daggers and Arachne, for instance, I do think this is, making a 0 for 5 is really good when it's marked. Sometimes it's just the fact of you might be in a play pattern of like you want to be swinging, playing the stealth card and maybe not doing so much with your dagger in that turn. But I think overall it's guaranteed 0 for 4 on the dagger, which is really good. So, and it's flexible. I think that flexibility. Actually, you know what? For the flexibility, I'm going to give it a B.
Sounds good.
Next up, we've got Incision. This is Assassin Warrior attack reaction at common, defensive 3. We're looking at the red one. 0 cost, target dagger attack gets +3 reaction. I mean, if I'm thinking from a warrior perspective, this is not Draconic, so much worse than some of the other ones. From an assassin perspective, we just spoke about, I think reacting on a dagger is not where you want to react. So I think I'm just at like a C for red and a D for the rest.
I'm going to C in Arachne. Yeah, only speaking about the red. C in Arachne. I'm going to B- for Fang. I think this is the block 3 on it with a decent rate. Like when you compare like Affirm Loyalty and the Devotion, like the Draconic tax is a lot, and this one doesn't pay that, obviously, because it's Draconic. And that it's 1 point of higher, like 1 point of damage higher than Affirm Loyalty, and one point of block higher. But yeah, it's not Draconic too, so I can't be super happy about it. But I'm okay. I'm okay having like a copy of this in my Fang deck. Next, we have Scar Tissue. This is a 0-cost Assassin/Warrior attack reaction that blocks for 2. And it says, target dagger attack gets +3 power, and when this hits a hero, mark them.
So I think my first instinct was this is very good. Well, this is quite good for Arachne. I had this at a B- actually.
Wow, I had the opposite. I was like, wait, this isn't good in Arachne, but it's good in Fang.
Oh, really interesting.
Yeah, I guess again, because I guess so it saves you your Mark of the Huntsman getting broken, I suppose. Like, because the Mark of the Huntsman is already gonna mark them if it hits, but you need to break it. So you sort of save yourself a dagger. You sort of save yourself from it breaking, which is kind of cool, I guess. But I was like, I'm not entirely sure if that's something I really want to be doing. Like, it's not really part of the full game plan in Arachne, in that again, you have to buff a dagger, to resolve this card.
Yeah. I'll come down to a C range, maybe C+. Yeah. Next up is Take a Stab. This is Assassin Warrior attack reaction. Looking at the red, defense for 2, cost 0, target dagger attack is +3, and when this hits a marked hero, you may attack with it an additional time this turn. I just feel like I never want to be attacking an additional time with daggers in either of these heroes.
Yeah, I gave this a D. I think the additional text doesn't matter at all. So in which case, this is a 0 for 3 block 2 on only daggers. So less relevant for Arachne, and is non-talented, so it's less relevant for Fang either. D is probably too harsh of a grade, to be honest. I think about it. Maybe D plus C minus, but this is the last few dregs of the pack. Okay, I'll just take this and.
Yep, C minus filler for me.
Next, we have Den of the Spider. This is a 0 cost assassin/warrior defense reaction. Trap blocks for 3. When this defends an attack with power greater than its base, mark the attacking hero. And it was what I was doing for all these traps, Hayden. I was like, this is a B for. When I say first copy, I do mean trap.
Yeah, that's fair. I had this one at a C+. I think it's just solid. So, yep, makes sense. Right, we're on to the generics to round it out. And we have another equipment set, of course. The generics also get an equipment set. We have the Blade Beckoner set, which has Guardwell. So these are a rare cycle. They defend for 1 and say this gets +1 defense while defending a weapon attack, and they have Guardwell. So what do you think of these?
These ones I gave a B. This one was not. I don't need to be talked up to a B for this. I wonder whether you're going to talk me up into an A, because these are very easy to block 2. You can block 1 on a regular attack, gets Guardwell, so you put a -1 count on this, and then you can block again on a weapon attack. It will get +1, and then now you're blocking an additional card, or you're just straight up blocking 2 on, say, Fang's Obsidian Fire Vein, because that's obviously going to go up to 2, because they're going to at least trigger its own text. Straight up block 2. So super easy to block 2 on this. This is, it's strictly better Iron Rod, I guess.
Yeah, it has a bit of inflexibility in some ways, right? Like to get the 2 spread, you do have to block a non-weapon and then a weapon, right? But honestly, the fact that you're getting 2 off of a piece of equipment, I think there's a reason this cycle is rare. I have this at a B plus A minus. Honestly, I think I'm just at an A minus. I think I'm super happy if I see this headpiece pack on pick 1. I'm probably just, unless there's other good cards in the pack that I want to take a punt on or just better cards, I think I'm probably just slamming this card.
It's quite a slam dunk first pick, and like I said, I think you were gonna talk me up to an A minus, and
done.
Next, we have Bunker Beard. Oh, I swear, the first time I read this, I thought it was Bunker Bread. I was like, that's an interesting name. Okay, Bunker Beard. Defense reaction, destroy this. You may add an action card from your arsenal to the active chain link as a...
I mean, I like equipment, but I think this is maybe the worst one on the set.
Yeah, I give this a C. I was like, it's good into Arachne or Fang, I guess, for similar like the insurance conversation you're having. If you're about to die, this can suddenly prevent you from dying. But it's very much a last resort thing, because that's an action card you put in your arsenal, which, if you are playing optimally in a sense, is likely a card that is a good card and a card that sort of relates to your game plan in some sense. And to go ahead and sort of have to use it's not done. This there is enough of a cost where I'm wondering, are you able to win if you survive this turn? Actually help you win, or is this helping you survive it extra?
Mm-hmm.
I think this is.
Yep, I think if I have the choice between a headpiece and no headpiece, I'll take the headpiece. So I'll give it a C+, but it's gonna feel mostly fairly average, I think. Next up, we have Pursue to the Edge of Oblivion. This is a generic attack action at rare. It only comes in red. Attacks for 4, defense for 3, cost 0, and says when this hits a hero, mark them. It's wounding blow with on hit, and I think this card is a really good card in all of the heroes, and is, well, particularly I think in the non-Arachne heroes, but I still think good in Arachne. At defense for 3, it's a B plus for me. I think this card is very good.
I gave it a B. I like it too, and my notes were it's just solid in all 3 of the heroes. You can open your draft.
Yeah,
you can open your draft with this and not be sad, because this will fit in all. Exactly. And even in Arachne, because if it hits, mark them, and then now you
Yep.
flip into an Agent of Chaos full of
Good. Pack one, pick one.
big fan.
Yep.
Next, we have Pursuit to the Pits of Despair, which is the same as the previous one, except this costs 1 and comes in for 5 instead. This is less solid than the above one, but still very, very good. Still, I think, similar in that kind of fits in all three of the heroes. I give this a C+, though. I do think the 1 cost can be a bit more prohibitive, also not being talented for the likes of Fang and Syndra down a little bit for me.
I'm still at B. I think this is Critical Strike, which I think I would give a C+ in this format anyway, and this is on hit mark, so I think I'm going to struggle to be lower than a B. But I can see the definite downside.
Fair enough.
Right, next up we've got Sound the Alarm. This is a generic attack action. Again, red only, costs 1, attacks for 5, defense for 3, and says when this attacks a hero, they reveal their hand. If an attack reaction card is revealed this way, you may search your deck for a defense reaction card, reveal it, and then put it on top. I mean, I think this is Critical Strike with some ability to go and find a defense reaction, which is probably fine, especially if I'm finding the spider one. So I just gave this a C+.
I give this a C, and my notes were literally, this is Critical Strike.
Yeah.
I think the text on the card is... It's very rarely going to apply, and it's also just not something I'm going to be like drafting towards anyway. So this doesn't... when I evaluating this card in a draft pack, I would look at it as Critical Strike, and so I'm grading it as Critical Strike, which is C.
Yep. All right.
Next, we have Razor Reflex, which only comes in red, and Razor Reflex, for those of you who don't know, says it's a 1-cost generic attack reaction that blocks for 2, and it says choose 1. Target dagger or sword weapon attack gets +3 power, or target attack action card with cost 1 or less gets +3 power, and when this hits, this gets go again.
Give me this pack 1, pick 1.
This card is incredible. I give this a B.
I give us an A.
Oh, okay, yeah, fair enough.
I just think that this affected generic is so strong in this set. I think it is relevant in all 3 heroes. It is relevant on every turn of the game in all 3 heroes for the most part. I think Syndra might find this a little bit lackluster on some turns. I don't think the other 2 heroes will ever find this of like, oh no, I drew Razor Reflex this turn, right? I think they're going to be, oh, I drew Razor Reflex this turn. So yeah, I have this at I would probably have this at a B+, but the fact this is just pure generic, I think for me is taking this to an A. This is the kind of card I want to open my draft with, I think.
I should probably have bumped this up a little bit because of the fact that it's generic. Because of the fact that you can take this, kind of similar to Pursuit to the Edge of Oblivion, right? You can like start your draft with this and not be sad about it and have it everywhere. I will point out though that like Arachne, for example, you do have a better option in 2 sides of the blade.
Yep,
because
that's true.
it's kind of like Razor Reflex. I guess it doesn't have to go again part of it, but it has a mark on hit instead and blocks for 3.
Go again's pretty good.
Which is kind of also why. Yeah. Sometimes it's. I think it's very conditional on whether the go against better or the mark is better.
Yeah.
You know, like in Arachne, it totally depends. And then, of course, not being Draconic for the Fang part of it. So, like, it does have downsides compared to other cards that these classes have access to. Was kind of why I didn't like slam dunk put it in A.
That's fair.
But but it does deserve a bit of a bump up because of how it allows you to be open in the drafting process.
Yep. I found the F. Should we move on?
Yes.
Imperial Seal of Command.
That is exactly the F.
I'm not even going to read it. If you want to know what it does, go read it. But if you open it, don't even bother reading it. Let's move on to Relentless Pursuit, I guess, which is a generic action, rare at blue, cost 0, defends for 3, says mark target opposing hero. If you've attacked them this turn, put this on the bottom of its owner's deck. Go again. I mean, so it's not instant speed and it's action speed mark. That does have a little bit of potential upside, but not really. I mean, it's a blue 3 block, so I guess maybe it's a C?
It's very hard for me to put blue 3 blocks lower than a C.
Yeah.
There's actually something I've gone very wrong for it. So yeah, I have this as a C as well. Don't have it higher than that. I think it's a good turn 1 play. You know, like in any of the heroes. It's a very good turn 1 play. Or if you have tempo, then it's like, you know, good extender in some sense. Or not good extender. It's like, okay, you got to at least. But yeah, I mean, blue block 3. put it as a C. I'm not too sad if this is coming around and this is one of my...
Yep.
Next, we have Calming Breeze. Cost 0, generic instant. The next 3 times you would be dealt damage this turn, prevent 1 that damage.
Okay, I like this card. I think I like this card. I was trying to work this out. I was trying to work out. I think this is worse than the defense reactions, but I do think this is playable. But I think it is a sideboard card mostly, and I think it's probably like a sideboard C plus.
I give this a sideboard grade as well. I was like, it's good into Syndra.
Yes, it is.
Because the others aren't very guaranteed. Actually, not just aren't guaranteed. The others are rarely sanding more
3
than
attacks,
2 chainlinks in a turn. Yeah, so they're like Arachne, Fang is almost sending 2 always, and Arachne is probably sending in the 1 to 2 range. Syndra is the one that's consistently sending 3 or more. So sideboard grade where it's like decent into Syndra.
Yeah, I don't like this. All right.
The others, okay. There is value. I was thinking about this into Arachne. Like there is value in that you get to block 2 across 2 chain links.
Yeah.
That isn't nothing. But it's still not. I'm not picking this up early, and there's a chance this is in my like 42 pile, and I don't bring.
Yeah.
Kind of it's in the D-ish range, and if you were forced to pick it into Syndra, you can.
It's red only as well, which is interesting. So
Yeah.
Cool. Next,
we have Sigil of Solace, 0 cost generic instant, gain 3 life. This one I have as a B.
Oh, interesting. What's pushing you to a B on this? Just the fact that it does that effect, except it just gains you the life. Like, what B? Interesting.
I think. Well, I mean, it's less conditional, right? Calming Breeze, I need them to send 3 attacks at me to gain the 3 life off of it. Whereas Sigil of Solace, I'm always gaining 3 no matter what. Like, they don't even need to be sending anything at me. This could be turn 0 and I'm gaining 3, for example. But more importantly, why I have this high, I think this format has a lot of small pings of damage.
Yeah, it does.
Very difficult to interact with. All 3 of them, right? Syndra is impossible to, like, block or kunai's. Fang is really difficult to block as well. Like, it's really hard to block Fang. You're going to be getting chipped down. And Arachne is also sending a bunch of daggers. And having the thing that that actually lets you block 3 across different chain links, like Sigil of Solace instead of Calming Breeze, puts it quite high for me in my.
All right, I'll come up to. I had a C plus, but I'll come up to a B minus. I think as well the fact that you can just like fealty this into Draconic as Fang is not nothing if you needed to. So
yeah,
that's true. All right, next up we've got Tip Off. This is a generic action attack. This is a cycle, but we're looking at the red one. Cost 1, defense 2, attacks 5, and says instant, discard this, mark target opposing hero. So it's critical strike, it blocks for 2, but has additional discard to mark the opponent. I really like the flexibility of this card. I think this is the kind of card like mid to late that I'm like, yep, I'm going to play some form of this in my deck probably, depending on my hero.
I struggle to call a card that only blocks 2 like super flexible. Like I do agree that you can like attack with it or discard it, but it does only have a block 2 on it. I have this as a C minus. I think it's a worse Reaper's Call. Like okay, when I was thinking about which 3 of the heroes would play it, I think Arachne is a better option in Reaper's Call. Syndra, I don't think is super interested in this card, where the discard flexibility of it isn't something she's super
That's fair.
like working towards. So Fang was one of those most likely to use it.
Agree.
I was like, so I gave this a C minus.
Okay, I have C, but yeah, makes sense.
Next, we have Outed. Also, I'm just laughing so hard that you found the F and it was exactly correct and we just moved on. This is so. Anyway, so we have Outed. This is a 0 cost generic action attack. It says if you are marked, you can't play this. If the defending hero is marked, this gets +1 and it has go again at base, and it blocks 0.
Yeah, blocking 0 is, I think, relevant considering the fact that, you can't play this sometimes.
Yeah, I give this a D.
Yeah.
It's potentially a bit higher than that. I mean, it does have a head jab at base in a sense, where the go again is non-conditional. So it has a 0 for 3 go again kind of thing. But yeah, you just straight up cannot play this if you're marked. That is just for a card that doesn't block to have a condition where you literally cannot play it. I think of massive life.
So I have this card at a C. I think the one thing I'll say is that I think in this format your arsenal is a lot more. It's used a lot less, I think, honestly, than some other limited formats. And I think there's heroes that honestly just don't really care about arsenaling in this format. And I think this is a reasonable card to arsenal if you have to. And the fact that you might be playing a deck where you can consistently make this a 0 for 4 when you can play it, I think is reasonable enough that I would give this a C and think it is playable in the right list, to the point of at some point someone's going to friggin' come in 0 for you with this on a big turn. You'll be like, that card, like what the heck? And then other times it's going to feel terrible.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Yeah, D is probably a bit too low. Maybe D plus or something.
But it's specific. It's specific, and the flexibility is very low. Yeah.
Next, we have Lalo, zero cost generic defense reaction that's yellow, blocks for 3. It says if you are marked, you can't play this. If the attacking hero is marked, their next attack this turn gets -1 power.
I mean, I feel the same about this card as I do Outed, honestly, a little bit, except that you can pitch this one because it's yellow, so that makes you feel a little bit better.
Yeah, this one I gave a better grade than the other one. Also, partly it says D-React on it, and I think cards that say D-React on it just have a bit of value. It's in a C+ range for me.
Yep.
Similar. At least if I'm marked and I'm not allowed to play this, I can pitch it and it's a yellow. And all of the heroes are okay pitching yellow. I think Arachne. We spoke about Arachne being okay pitching yellow. Fang, if you have the 0 cost react, fine pitching a yellow as well. And then D-React clause. Yeah, C+ for me.
Me too, C+. Next up, Expose. This is a blue-only generic attack reaction. This costs 0, does not defend. It says if you are marked, you can't play this. Target attack, it's +1. Mark the defending hero. So it's lunging press with a mark condition, except it doesn't block, and if you're marked, you can't play it. I mean, it's blue, so again, the pitch comes into it, but it doesn't defend, I think rightly so. I mean, marking a hero with a blue card and giving +1, that's also a reaction, is pretty good. I think on the whole, I have this as a C+ as well.
I have this as a C. I think man, no blocks, man. It's like if I'm gonna put a no block in my deck, I want the payoff to be really, really worth it, and I think the payoff is just okay. Okay, like in Syndra, I think this is a D. I think if you have this in your Syndra deck, that's a bad Syndra deck. Oh, like you're totally scraping. Arachne as well is kind of like just fine. Fang's the only one where I'm like, you know what, this is maybe justifiable.
That's fair. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm like, is it lower than? It might be lower than a C actually.
Yeah, maybe. I might give a C-, like, CC- then.
Yeah.
Yep. All right.
Next, we have put in context 0 cost blue generic defense reaction, blocks for 3. It says this can only defend an attack with 3 or less base power.
This card's good.
I like it.
I like this card a lot.
I think it's potentially only like quote unquote bad, not even bad, but maybe sometimes awkward if you're against Syndra. But against Arachne or Fang, you've almost suddenly just getting... against Arachne, you're 100% just getting a full value. Any stealth attack, you can just put this in front of it. And Fang, you can put this in front of the Obsidian 5A no matter how big it gets. So yes, I like this card. I have this as a B.
Yeah, I'm B as well. And honestly, even against Syndra, I'm just playing it and just slamming it on the first head jab they play. If I even want to block with it. And at minimum, it's blue. So yeah, maybe you sideboard it out for if you just have another block 3 blue in your sideboard to play against Syndra, then just sideboard it out. But whatever, this card's really good.
Yeah, and in this format, I mean, there's almost no cards where you can't go ahead and play this.
Yeah.
Like what? It's like the wounding blow cards. You can't play this.
Yeah, just don't play badly and like
almost
be in a position where you have to block with a card in your turn. You want it to be this, and you wait till the last chain link against something like a Fang or an Arachne. That's obviously bad, or even Syndra, but otherwise.
Yeah, it does ask you to just block a little bit smartly, which I mean to some extent there's a bit of a tax there when it comes to like on hits or whatever. But yeah, I think on the whole, your blue block 3 that is a defense reaction. You're not too sad.
Yeah. Point me out all the blue block 3 defense reactions. This card is solid. Next up, we've got Nip at the Heels. Also, some of these generics have great art, honestly. This is blue only again. It is a generic attack reaction. Defense 3, cost 0. Target attack with 3 or less base attack is +1. So, yeah, I mean, I like this card. I think it's defense 3 at blue. It's a attack reaction, and it gives +1. Obviously, there's some stipulation, but again, there's a lot of things you can play this on. So, does Syndra want this? maybe not, but it's a blue block 3, so, it's not terrible. But the other two heroes, I think, want this card.
As I said earlier, I'm very rarely going to see a blue block 3 and say this is lower than a C. This is very much that for me. It's like I put it in a C mostly because blue block 3. The +1 on the attack thing, most of your attacks you'll be able to resolve this on. It's lunging press. When you're resolving this card, is lunging press in this format, but because it blocks 3, I'm like, ooh, okay, this is actually fine. But lunging press, the effect of lunging press isn't something I'm like super thrilled about. So that's why I gave this just a C.
Yeah, I'm C+.
Fair enough. Next, we have Trot Along, which is a generic action, another blue 0-cost block 3. And it says your next attack with 3 or less base power this turn gets go again, and this itself has.
I don't like spinning a card and go again, even if it's a blue 3 block. So, in the spirit of, I guess, Pankaj's grading system, I won't give this a D, but I will give this a C-, C, I guess.
I give this a C with a stipulation that I think in Arachne this could be a C+.
Yeah.
Could be archetype dependent, construction, and game, like point in the game dependent. In a sense, where you've stolen tempo for whatever reason. Have this card, it's fine. But yeah, blue block 3. It's a sort of card where when I put this in my deck, I'm like never sad about it because it's a blue block 3. So it's at minimum a C.
Yeah, I need to see how this format plays out. This format is quite quick, and if I could have another blue block 3 or even sometimes a blue block 2 that has some relevant like attack or text. There might be times I do want to play those cards, honestly, in this format. I think the other thing as well is I almost want to give this a D so that people don't play this card, like actively like cast this card, is what I'm worried about. And I might just be doing people a service, so I give this a D, honestly.
That makes sense. Although I will point out, it does feel like this set, all 3 of the heroes do want a fair number of blues. Like,
yes, that's true.
Syndra's an aggro deck because she's built around wanting to swing daggers almost every turn. They do want, I think the smallest US number of blues you want is like 8.
Yep.
So I think everyone is going to want these.
Yeah, you've got spaces for them. All right, I'm going to take the honor of the very last card of the set that we're going to talk about today, Public Bounty. This is a generic action at common. It is only at red. It is, called Public Bounty. What a great last card. Defends 2, costs 1, says mark target opposing hero. The next time you attack a marked hero this turn, the attack gets +3. So this is a kind of come to fight with 1 less defense, but it marks the target opposing hero. I have this as a B+. I think this card is great on rate. It's got a good effect, and you're going to want this card in your deck probably most, if not all the time. Syndra, I guess.
I have this as a B- in Arachne and Fang. And then for Syndra, I had this as a D. I don't think I want this in my Syndra deck most of the time. I suppose. I mean, we had the conversation about fealties and marking. So maybe it should be a little higher than a D. But yeah, in Fang and Arachne, I think B- is totally fine. I mean, unconditional mark is great for both of them, and then you get +3. For Arachne, you get +3 on something that potentially matters against a marked target already. It's pretty nice. And then for Fang, well, the opponent's marked. You're gonna get a fealty from.
All right, I'm gonna go B. We've done it, Pankaj. We've gotten through the full limited set review for the Hunted, commons and rares, and honestly, this is a big set because of the stipulation on colors of cards. There's a lot to talk about. It is 20 past midnight here in Australia. This has been great. I am super excited to play with the set in limited. I'm super excited to play with it classic constructed. I just think it's a very, very cool set.
The set is deep and is intricate, both on the drafting process, the deck building process, and the playing of it, like on the micro level as well when you're doing turn-to-turn cycle stuff. Yes, I'm really looking forward to diving into this limited format as well. I think the marked mechanic is so incredibly engaging.
Yeah, massively. All right, well, I think that's going to do it for episode 197 of Arsenal Pass, the Hunted Limited Set review. Glad that we've gotten back to be able to do these. It's what kind of kicked off the podcast all these years ago in Monarch, almost 4 years ago now, coming in close on the 4-year mark of Arsenal Pass. So it's great to continue this kind of flagship podcast and do it with you, Pankaj. I want to say a massive thank you to all the Arsenal Pass listeners and to the Arsenal Pass patrons, and good luck at your pre-releases this weekend if you're playing.